Okay, it's running, and I'm supposed to be live and now. So hello everybody. Nice to have all of you here. This looks good. A little higher here. And we are on for another show. 2 shows in 2 days. So here we go, and just this so that things look better, and we're off to another start. What else do we have here? And the IRC chat is on, so hello everybody, welcome aboard. And we are live for another shortwave radio show on this Saturday/Sunday for some of you in Australia. And nice to have everybody here. Pretty cool to do this live show today. We're going to talk about solar activity. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to talk about a little bit of the history of solar activity, some of the moments that are interesting in there, the effect it has for shortwave. So I hope you enjoy today's show. So hey everybody, this show is every 2 weeks on the Saturday at 2000 hours Universal Time. You want to know if I'm live? There's a clock here with the date and time, UTC time. So hope everybody enjoys today's show. Nice to have you all on board. So we're streaming from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. My name is Gilles, and I hope you are going to have a lot of fun today again. So, hello there in the chat room. We have Richard Cook. Nice to have you on board. Paul Schaffer, nice to have you here. Ernie Turner, nice to have you on board at 7 a.m. Sunday morning. And usually 7 a.m. on the Sunday mornings I am still sleeping, usually. Rock Ristorante, hello there from Sweden. MDK2, got 10 seconds delay, nice to have you here. William Helms, hello there from Florida. Chris Freitas, nice to have you on board. And streaming on the Chromecast while the laptop is rendering a video. Cool. So you'll have a video on YouTube later today. Randall Klontz, nice to have you on board from Northeast Illinois. Xander Marks, 21, it's 9 p.m. in the Netherlands. Rob Webster from the UK. Ernie Turner, VK3DET from Australia. Eric Cottrell, hello there, nice to have you on board, my friend. Pavel Lysenko, good afternoon, hello there. PLF Radio from France, hello there, Mr. Spinks. Any jazz out of Hawaii? Not a lot of things out of Hawaii except WWVH. Jason Kane, greetings. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Jerry DX, hello there. The Vaults in Latvia, nice to have you here. Juan Amigo in Barcelona. Hola, mi amigo. Yeah, I did see that. Bobby Burgess, hello there. Hawaii had a false alarm with the missile today. Sun in Illinois, Sun, nice to have you on board. Nick Amendo from Romania. Anybody else, say hello please. Nice to have all of you here. The Dutch Shortwave Station, good evening from the Netherlands, nice to have you here. Casper Peterson, nice to have you on board from Denmark. No, I'm not going to mess it up today. Onda Corta, desde PR for Puerto Rico. Hello there, Mike, nice to have you here from Puerto Rico. Jason Kane is in San Diego, California. Paulo's Records, hello there from the UK, really nice. Bobby Burgess got me on the TV for your Chromecast. I need a Chromecast. Well, I have a equivalent of a Chromecast, but I'm not sure it works as well as a Chromecast. It's one of those cheap eBay Chrome things. M. Blair, nice to have you on board from Tennessee. Orion Nebula from Chicago, Illinois. Hidden Rabbit from West Sussex, UK. The X, hello there from the Netherlands. And no, I thought, well, it was supposed to be false. Who knows? Who knows what's happening? Hey, John Timken, nice to have you on board. Pretty cool. KC9KUH from Indiana, nice to have you here. And I've got wine today, thanks to some of the Christmas gifts. So today I've opened up a Dreaming Tree California wine. Whoops, California wine. And so this is what I'll be drinking today instead of beer. You know what? I had kind of an overdose of beer, and anything else than beer is welcome. So cheers, everybody. You will, Bobby Burgess. I will do a few videos. I need to plug it back in and play a little more with it. I want to show the capabilities of AirPlay of the iPhone and AirPlay of course, the Samsung phone. It works really well in my Galaxy S7, but for some reason it's kind of not working well with the iPhone. So hello there, Radio Man 881 from Calumet, Michigan. Mike from Bury St. Edmunds in the UK. Nice to have all of you here. It's nice to have everybody on board. IRC chat room and regular chat room in the live shows. JB, nice to have you here. Jack in 9IIF, pretty cool. So yeah. Well, last week was more like upset stomach thing, and it's yeah, the Chromecast is actually very nice. And it is very inexpensive, absolutely. Nicholas Hughes, nice to have you here. Jerry DX, nice to have you on board, my friend. So, hey everybody, we are going to talk a little bit about some solar activity today. We'll of course be tuning around the bands a little bit, checking out what's live. If anybody hears me live somewhere on a pirate station, well, let me know. Who knows? Maybe somebody's just offered his transmitter time to rebroadcast the audio of this show, which is always kind of cool, basically. Have Blassie, nice to have you on board from Oakland, California. And I hope everybody is going well in this show today, Saturday, January 13th. Yeah, there's a new amateur satellite, absolutely. AO92, I believe, which is Fox 1D, which was sent into orbit. Usually it takes a little while before they are actually heard, because very often they put it in orbit and they don't turn on the transponders and the things immediately. They start doing kind of diagnostics, and then if it goes well, they actually will, put all of that live for sure. So nice to have everybody on board with my good old Grundig right here, because I've been listening to this thing a lot. I mean, this Grundig is just amazingly cool. So, like I said, the satellite is probably not yet operational. But as soon as it is, I am going to make a video. I'm going to try to and hopefully, let's cross our fingers. Maybe in the VHF UHF show on the last Friday of the month, we'll have it. Who pays for putting all amateur satellites in orbit? So it's a mixed bag of ways that are paid. Some are. The IRC chat is, no, it's not down. It's going well here. Bobby, mine seems to be working okay. So some of them are offered graciously free, free space on the launcher, because usually they're launched with other satellites. So they'll be launched with, all sorts of commercial satellites. Sometimes they get a free ride, and as long as the satellite doesn't weigh more than a certain, 1 or 2 kilograms or something, they have to keep it really, really light. Sometimes what they do, and the ARRL, or the AMSAT, the satellite branch, will do fun runs and all sorts of trying to get some funding and gather the money necessary to pay for you know, what it will cost to put it in orbit, typically often in the tens of thousands of dollars. I remember one of them, I think was one of the AMSATs anyways, from the US. They had like, I think they got like $50,000 to make the satellite and to pay for a place on the launcher. So it's really a mixed bag. Sometimes they have to pay for it or pay a certain amount. So they'll actually, you know, do a GoFundMe or things like that, so that amateur radio operators that love satellites can actually chip in. And sometimes they get it for free. Sometimes they just get a free ride, which is of course what they like, because if you get a free ride, it's kind of cool. And that's pretty much how it happens when they put satellites in orbit, Vaults. It's really a mixed bag. What else do we have? Did you get that winter storm? Yeah, we did. Actually, it's sunny, but we got our like 30 centimeters of snow. The foot of snow fell in 24 hours. Yesterday it started snowing around 9 p.m. So temperature was plus 10 yesterday afternoon, about 50 Fahrenheit. Right now we're at minus 11, which is what, about 20 Fahrenheit? Even less, 15. And tonight it's dropping to minus 23, which is about minus 10 Fahrenheit, something like that. So it's going to be really cold. And to give you guys an idea, in two days we were in the about 10 degrees Celsius, plus 10. And the we started on this side where it's sunny. We actually were starting to see the grass. And today there's a foot of snow on that. So it's kind of a, it was actually so intense that they were telling everybody last night that if you don't have to get out, just stay home. It's better. And I just went to the grocery store, and man, there's like nobody on the roads. It's very, very quiet. There's just a few cars. And everybody's just shoveling and, you know, enjoying a day of cleaning up after the storm. So, kind of interesting. Dream Shadow 76, hello there. So KC9QH, yeah, usually they turn on telemetry, they turn on things like that, maybe the beacon, but probably the transponders will take a few days before they are on for sure. The sooner the better, that's for sure. That's for sure. What else do we have here? What do we have? Anything else? Ronald Zucala, nice to have you from Pittsburgh. WWV on 10 and 15, not good here. The shortwave reception is not good as late. What's wrong? Well, one of the things that's not helping is the, and we'll talk about it in the solar activity that we're going to talk about today. Part of it is due to the fact that the solar flux has been really low. So what's happening, because of low solar flux, the higher frequencies are not propagating as well. I did hear WWV on 20 not long ago. If I go on 20 here, it's very weak right now. I get it on, even on 15, it's very weak. I'm not really getting any WWV frequencies right now. So the higher frequencies are not as good. But actually propagation is not bad. It's just that you got to adjust your listening. For example, at this time, all afternoon, I've been having great reception from European and different stations. Let's just check out here, 5960. See if we can get, yeah, look at that. China Radio from Albania is coming in. 5960, this is China Radio from Albania, so propagation is actually good.
You're really good at this. He's a top-ranking answer.
So it's really adjusting your time. And remember that summer, spring, fall, and winter have different propagation characteristics. So for example, in the winter time, north-south, propagation is really, really good. In the afternoon, thanks to the shorter days. Basically, what happens is European stations and the 9 megahertz or the 25, 31 meter band are usually coming in well. But there's a change in pattern, so you'll see it if you listen for when like me, you've been listening for 35 years. You kind of start understanding that there's patterns, the regular patterns. If you want to listen to certain bands, that certain times of the year are better than others, and so on. But as we in the nighttime, it's been a little more of a problem. Although yesterday evening, after the live show, I tuned around shortwave all evening, and propagation on the low frequencies below 9 megahertz were actually very amazing. And I was even amazed more at how strong the 160 meter band, 1.8 to 2 megahertz amateur band was. Signals were so strong. The same signals I usually hear were much stronger yesterday, and there was a lot more people. There's a lot of people on the 160 meter band last night. It's kind of an interesting lesson. 5450, the RAF station from UK, was coming in really strong, so it was kind of nice, but you got to adjust your listening for sure. Eric Cottrell, yeah, free rides these days are few and far between. Absolutely, it's more and more of a let's pay for the satellite to be sent in orbit. Absolutely. So, Bobby, have you been catching Radio Havana Cuba 15140? I've not really been receiving very well 15140 lately. It's crazy. It used to come in really, really well, and this last winter, I remember last winter, they were really strong. I don't know if they're still on 15140. Radio Havana Cuba has one problem: they change frequency regularly, and since they don't register their frequencies, you kind of just, oh, look at that, that's the new Radio Havana Cuba frequency. So so it could be skipping also. But I've not had a really good signal from 15140. I hear it in the background, kind of in the noise, but I've not really had a really good signal. Honestly, I don't know if they're on right now. I can try 15140 now. And honestly, I've got nothing on 15140, so I don't know if they're at 2000. I believe they are broadcasting. There's a very weak something, but it's not there. I don't see it. So, what else do we have? Bands were better a couple of hours ago. They seem pretty weak now. I believe there was a possibility of a. Let me just check that out here. We're going to check out the latest indices. There was a solar wind gust that could hit Earth today. K index is 2, solar flux 71. It's not the best, but it's not too bad. So propagation shouldn't be too bad right now. What else do we have? Eric Cottrell says we're going from 60 Fahrenheit to 20 Fahrenheit over the day. They were warning of a flash freeze this afternoon. Yeah, that's what we had yesterday. So you're getting pretty much what we had happening yesterday. It was about 50 Fahrenheit around noon yesterday. And at midnight last night, it was about 20 Fahrenheit. Something like that. Richard Cook says possibly Voice of Korea on 6170. PLF Radio sharing the same solar flux indices. Calvin, nice to have you on board. Dax Farr, hello there. Thank you very much for the nice comments. I get a lot of people saying they love the shows that I do, and it's kind of fun also because we gather a nice, cool bunch of people talking about radio. And for those that don't know and that are new, two ways. There's a beautiful chat room in the YouTube channel. All you need, and if you look on, if you view through your PC on YouTube, you see the chat room on the right side. To join, all you need is to log in with a Gmail account. That's the way you will join the chat room, and so you just need a Gmail account. And there's an IRC chat room that I keep open. It used to be used a lot on the servers of digital addictions, but it seems to have gone a little out. That's interesting. I'm looking at. It seems that I have the impression that the digital addictions server. You may be right, Bobby. I think it has crashed. All the names have disappeared, and there seems to be almost no connections. And my name has moved to kind of a weird thing. So it's possible that it is has crashed in between, Bobby. Cool, Nicolas. Let us know how it goes. Vianney Arsenault, bonjour, bienvenue. And nice to have you on board as usual. So, yeah, it's kind of weird, Bobby. I've just noticed how the IRC chat is very, very weird. Something's happening there. I don't know what. So I'm going to try to go back again and see. What is there? So Dream Shadow 76 says meaning to join the chat, been involved in FM pirate radio for about 10 years, been hired by a community station about 5 years ago, studio engineer, working and sleeping sometimes under Tower Shack, doing live shows at the tower itself, and been on WBCQ airing synth-pop, new wave, and electronic dance music. And want to get into ham radio. Cool. That's a cool way to take care of it. What else do we have? Oh, really, Jerry? Captain Dave was getting butchered. You know, when you do things, you know, I know a lot about that. When you do things, you get some haters, unfortunately, that just don't like it that you're getting popular. And that plus the fact that, yeah, it's very weird in the chat room on the IRC, by the way. So it's very, very weird. So anyways, when you get popular at some point, you know, you get haters. And unfortunately, it's part of the game, for sure. What else do we have? Yeah, that's the good thing. Here we had some freezing rain yesterday evening. Part of the evening we had some freezing rain before it changed to snow, so got a little bit of ice on the ground below that snow. Andres Bato, nice to have you here from Hungary. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Propagation doesn't seem to be that bad, actually. Depends what you're listening to. Radio, China radio is really strong. Looking at different stations here, let's see if check out. Yeah, that's a little weak. Voice of America is a little weak on 15580. The higher frequencies are a little less propagating for sure. Vim Bembrook, what do you think would be good to catch shortwave this time of the year? You know what? Everything is possible. You got to listen to the radio every time of the year because, you know, we hear these things of people saying, oh, it's winter is going to be the best time for propagation. Oh, it's spring is the best time for propagation. Oh, it's summer is the best time for propagation. Oh, it's always the best time for propagation, honestly. And basically, it's very, you know, it's just a question of tuning and adjusting yourself, because one of the things you got to understand is you got to adjust the time that you're listening, depending on, you know, the time of year. You got to adjust the frequencies you're listening to depending on the time of year. And unfortunately, today we have to talk about this all the time. Very, very important to check out the amount of noise you've got on the bands where you are, because it's not always, you know, good because there's so much noise. Eric Cottrell says, tentative 2018 Winter Shortwave Listening Fest program is a form scheduled to be held on March 1st to 3, 2018. So the Shortwave Fest is, well, I'll give Eric Cottrell the moderator status. So Eric, you've joined moderator status. You can now post links if you want, Eric. So go ahead, Eric Cottrell. You can post any link if you want. So you're now a moderator, as it should have been done earlier. You know, since we've met at the CIDX barbecue, should have been. So what else do we have? Richard Cook says something on 9770 coming in good. Let's see if I can hear something on 9770. 9770. Anything here? Nothing much here on 9770. So it's kind of interesting. But Richard Cook's receiving something. What else do we have? Name Last says the first public dial-up BBS was developed by Ward Christensen during the Great Blizzard of '78. Huh, interesting. Spectres of Shortwave on the schedule. That's kind of cool. Okay. So, thanks for sharing the Shortwave Fest events, forum, and everything, Eric, so that everybody can enjoy and see what's going to happen. That's the biggest shortwave event of the year, basically, around the Philadelphia area, I believe. Okay, we're going to talk today about solar activity and what it has as an effect for shortwave propagation. So when you're a newbie, one of the things that you don't know is the interaction of the sun and the ionosphere, and of course the propagation and the signals that you receive. And one of the funny stories I always like to say about it, and shows that I was a newbie at some point, I remember putting up 150 feet of wire when I was about 14 years old, and for 2 or 3 days in a row receiving KBS World Radio direct from South Korea. Well, that back then it was the Voice of Korea, and with a really good signal, and I was really happy. It was like, oh, my antenna works. And then day number 4, I tune in, nothing, no signals, nothing at all. So I'm convinced that my antenna is broken because I don't get anything. And I go out and I just like take it down and put it back up and try to figure out why I can't receive. Well, that was simply my ignorance, not understanding that there was probably some solar event that made the signal go away for a day or two. And, you know, and I was puzzled for a while. I was puzzled at the fact that sometimes I'd hear a signal really well, sometimes for several days in a row, and sometimes there would be no signal, or it was really weak. And every time I would see it, that it was weaker, I was always wondering, is something wrong with my equipment, with my antenna, with the way things are happening? And it's not until many years after, because you gotta understand that back then there's no internet to really check out what's happening in the solar sphere and whatever, and get information on shortwave. It's really many years later that I read an article in a club bulletin that finally talks about the fact that shortwave and solar activity are linked in some way. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, well, now I'm starting to understand why some days I hear something, some days I don't. But that was something that, you know, you just needed to understand that, okay, the sun has an effect, and the interaction, it gets a little complex, understanding the interaction of everything. Hey there, Mickey Delmage, nice to have you on board from Western Canada. And absolutely, propagation is affected by latitude, absolutely. So, this is an interesting one. I've never checked this one, the Swedish magnetometer. So that's cool. Thanks for the link. I'll check that out for sure. Really nice. So, so that's when I kind of understand, and I kind of finally knew, oh, okay, now I get it. My system isn't, problematic or anything. There's just variations in the signal levels and everything. So, it's kind of interesting. So Mickey Delmage says ERF shows some activity, might be K4 soon. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, because I know that there was supposed to be a faster solar wind coming from a coronal hole, kind of hitting the Earth, and I had seen on Space Weather that they were kind of thinking that today, January 13th, we might have a little bit of geomagnetic storming conditions. So 15140 coming in well, by the way, Radio Havana, Cuba on the West Coast. Nothing here. And what else do we have? Just checking out here. WRMI coming in weak, but hearable on 7780. I haven't been able to hear it yesterday. So, what do you want on 730 kilohertz? Here we have a local, traffic station here on 730 kilohertz. Well, 7300 kilohertz. Okay. 7300. Anything here? 730. Yeah, I'm hearing it. It's in the noise, but I'm hearing it. This is a Chinese jammer. 7300 is Fire Drake jammer. They have these crazy Chinese music. I actually like the Fire Drake. It's kind of entertaining. It's kind of, really unique Chinese jammer. So that is maybe it's the first time you hear that, but it's coming direct from China, by the way. I hear it not very strong here, but I distinctly hear the type of music that Fire Drake gives out. So 5130 might be there's a little maybe a little early. 5130. Two hands on the radio. Nice to have you on board. And Richard Cook says 7305 is this channel radio also. So anyways, that's my first little story about not understanding when I was a newbie that the solar activity had impact on the shortwave bands. And I'm just gonna move something here because I believe the battery of this laptop needs recharging. And that was my phone that fell on the floor. Why does it always fall face down? It's always like that for some reason. Anyways, so that was the first moment where I didn't understand, and then later on I understood that solar activity was important. One of the first things to understand is that solar activity happens because of let's first face it, we don't know that much about the sun, honestly. There's really not that much. Even though we're in 2018 and we study it, and there's been great improvements in what we know about the sun in the past 10 to 20 years, even though there is basically the thing that happens is that the solar activity and comes from within the sun. There's geomagnetic fields within the sun. They're generated somewhere inside the solar dynamo. The sun is a huge nuclear bomb. It's a huge thermonuclear bomb that is, keeping itself in space by the gravity of the huge gravity it has, and basically it rotates about 27 days for full rotation on itself. And that is one of the reasons why solar activity is actually a changing thing all the time. What happens is the poles and the equator of the sun don't spin at the same speed. So the geomagnetic fields are actually stretched like an elastic band as the sun is turning. And of course that creates all sorts of interactions with different fields of magnetic lines that actually will meet. They will of course create all sorts of little magnetic bubbles that pierce through the surface, and these are the ones that we see, and they create a sunspot. So the sun has also a cycle. Its solar cycle is an average of 11 years. And that is an average. The longest solar cycle was something like 17 years. The shortest one was about 7 or 8 years. But the average turns out to be around 11 years. So it's not always, it's not a fixed thing that it's 11 years and that's it. It could be longer, it could be shorter. So that's one thing that you've got to understand with the solar activity. So that's the first part. Knowing that the sun has a geomagnetic field, it actually will have geomagnetic interactions. It will sometimes, in really, really intense moments, have huge solar flares that will send out, huge quantities of particles through space that it hurt. And that's where it comes from, the aurora borealis. I remember hearing some people telling, oh, well, that's the reflection of the sun on the glaciers in the north. It's like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It is simply that there are moments where the solar wind, the particles coming from the sun, interact with our own geomagnetic field, because the Earth is a giant magnet also. And, of course, that creates, depending on the strength of the solar wind and how many particles are coming, they're creating aurora borealis around the poles, and sometimes even further down. And we're going to have an interesting story about that a little later, of how far south you can actually see aurora borealis when there's really major storming going on. Matthew Wells, nice to have you here. And Rock Ristorante says strong signals from North America and Sweden right now. I've been tuning the SDR, the Software Defined Radio online from Sweden in the SDR.hu. It's, I believe, the third one from the list. And I am amazed at everything that is received there. And the noise level is so low also. So it's pretty amazing. Southern Illinois saying, I'm boycotting shortwave stations that play Brother Stare for free. Honestly, I do not think they play Brother Stare for free. I think Brother Stare is broadcast because they have a contract and were probably paid in advance for a certain time. And the only thing they're doing is they're just following the contract and playing what they have to play until the money runs out. I don't, most shortwave broadcasters, private shortwave broadcasters, they won't play Brother Stare for free. I don't think so. Even more so with what's happening. If I'd be a shortwave broadcaster, with what we know of Brother Stare, I would guess that I'd be really I would want to have Brother Stare out of my station as fast as possible. But sometimes you can have a contract or something, and it's making it a little difficult to. You got your money, so you gotta continue. Do you listen to 90.3? What's 90.3? So, Simon in Illinois says he's worried that by the time the next solar cycle, shortwave will be totally different. You know, I think we got to take it 1 year at a time. That's one thing for sure right now. Free Saxon, nice to have you here, and welcome aboard. So here in Montreal, we get on 93.7. I don't know what I get. I almost don't tune FM. It's one of the bands I don't tune, almost never. Dan805, hello there from North Carolina. Mad Radio DXer, hello there. So there are some cycles. There's peaks of cycles, and there's the bottoms of a cycle in the solar cycle, and it has an effect on shortwave. And the effect on shortwave is simple: is that when there's a higher solar, when the solar cycle is at the maximum, typically the sun is more active. It sends out more, a lot more particles towards us. And, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. We're not talking here of necessarily an increase in solar wind or anything, but an increase in the output of energy. That means the ionosphere gets thicker and can easily, or even more so, propagate some frequencies better than others. So typically in the solar maximum, higher frequencies are supported because the amount of energy, the thicker ionosphere, simply makes the ionosphere capable of propagating, you know, frequencies up to 30 megahertz and even more, and even more. It all depends on the solar activity. And of course, there's the downturn of solar activity. We are near the solar minimum right now. We're about a year or two away from solar minimum. That means the sun is not as active as it used to be. And it shows. We can see that the higher frequencies, typically above 20 megahertz, it's not been very good in the past 6 months. And it is an effect of lower solar activity. Less energy coming from the sun, thinner ionosphere, higher frequencies don't propagate. We have to go down in frequencies when we listen, typically. And, you know, just add to that what's happening with the seasons. For example, here in Montreal, 45 degrees latitude north, we have a pretty good effect of winter versus summer differences. And the long nights of winter, well, the maximum usable frequency drops really low. And it's even lower because now we're in almost solar minimum. The solar flux, PLF Radio has a little earlier put the solar indices. Solar flux is a measure of the amount of energy coming from the sun. It pretty much reflects how much, you know, if solar activity is. It's measured at a frequency of 2,400 megahertz or something like that. It is typically a measure of the noise, because what's happening is the sun sends out radio waves, radio noise at different levels, of different wavelengths. And one of them is measuring the output of noise coming from you know, that frequency range. The noisier it is, technically, the more the sun is active. And usually sunspot appear, every time some sunspots appear, usually you suddenly get much more activity and you see the solar flux rise. Sunspots disappear, usually means a little more quiet, and solar flux drops. The value of the solar flux is from 60 to 400. Now, I have to say one thing about these numbers. They're not fixed in stone. So, it's 60 to 400, but in reality, it could go to 600 and we don't even know, because we never measured higher than a certain level. Maybe it could go lower than 60 and we just never measured lower than that, and it happened. We just don't know. So the scale is from 60 to 400, something like that. The lowest solar flux index that I've seen in my life of listening, I think is 64 in the last solar minimum. That was 64. So today you see it's 71. We're kind of really down the bottom there. The highest I've ever seen, and it was in one of the solar peaks of the 80s. I remember seeing a solar flux of 353. I can tell you, you could DX the 6-meter band at 353. It was part of, every day it would propagate. It's just crazy when you get to a solar flux that's so high. The ionosphere is so thick and incapable of high frequencies that it really propagates signals in very, very high frequency ranges. So that's pretty much what's happening. So the solar flux, when you look at indices like we saw today, it's somewhat a good indication of how active the sun is, and somewhat a good indication of, if you take out other phenomena like sporadic E-skip, and there's all sorts of things that can happen that might have high frequencies propagating for a while. One of the things that, if you take that out, you can pretty much use solar flux and kind of know if 10-meter band could or not be open almost. Solar flux 100 or more, 10-meter band is probably open. Solar flux of 71, like we have right now, it's probably not open. But like I always want to say, and I always say, never think of these numbers as something that that you're going to use to decide if you're going to listen to the radio. I see too many people putting out these numbers and saying, oh, well, I guess I'm going to watch TV tonight. No, if you do that, you're misunderstanding that these numbers are not absolute, and that there's a lot of different things that can interact with propagation that finally mean you can maybe hear something incredible, even though some of the numbers for you might look not good. So don't fall for that. Don't fall to the, oh well, like I see so many times, oh well, we're going to the solar minimum, I guess shortwave is going to be dead for 2 years. No, it's not. Shortwave has never been dead in solar minimum. I've done some of my best DX in solar minimum. I've heard countries that I'd never heard before in solar minimum. Thinking that solar minimum is going to kill shortwave is being very short-sighted and not understanding what shortwave is. But it is different. You won't probably DX the world on 10 meters. You might DX the world on lower frequencies though. And even sometimes low solar activity means very enhanced propagation in some of the frequency range on the lower part of the bands. You can DX the world on 49-meter band international broadcast band, which is 6 megahertz. Solar minimum is a great time for that. But you won't DX the world on 13-meter band probably, because solar activity is too low. But then again, listen and try it out. I go up above 20 megahertz regularly to check out for signals. So don't just take a look at the numbers. Do some real listening yourself. You need to understand that. What else do we have here? John Timken says he's optimistic for future of shortwave. China is turning out millions of shortwave receivers that are flooding the markets of the world. As far and as the next solar cycle unfolds, interest in shortwave will rise. Interest in shortwave will always be there. And you got to also understand that for a lot of markets, there's really nothing that's going to be different for the solar cycle. Basically, in general, you will just have people listening. Stations adjust themselves. Most of them, some of them, like I often like to talk about KBS World Radio, that totally does not understand that they need to change their frequencies. Basically, most stations adapt their frequencies in order, for depending on the time of year we are and solar activity. Tuned to 215 kilohertz. What do you hear? I don't hear nothing on 215 kilohertz. If I hear something in that band, it's non-directional beacons that I will hear in general. I hear the local one in the airport here at 248 kilohertz. Daniel 05. Yeah, there was a missile scare in Hawaii. I saw that in the news just before I got on the live show. Philip Jones, nice to have you on board for the first time. Pretty cool. Nice to have you here. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Really cool. What else do we have? What else do we have? So it's something to check out. The frequencies you'll listen. So welcome, Philip Jones. Redove 19, thank you very much. Nice to have you here. Max Edstrong, nice to have you on board. Sheldon Harvey, bonjour, hi. From snowbound Montreal. Yeah, we did have a lot of snow. Can tell you that. 9420 kilohertz. Greece is strong. Let's check it out here. Do I hear Greece on 9420? Let's check it out. Almost nothing. Definitely, I can say that propagation is really not as good as yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, if you guys remember, about this time, I was hearing Greece on 9420. I'm not hearing it today. I do hear CRI on 5960 a lot, but so Okay. What else do we have? No, what no show will there be? Is there going to be a problem with the international radio report? Maybe I haven't seen. Indicator says, ask Arnie Coro once. He says 64 was the lowest figure. I had asked if that was the lowest possible, but he may have answered what was the lowest ever measured. I think 64 is the lowest ever measured, and I believe it goes down to 60. I'm not going to put my hand in the fire for that, but I will. I remember reading somewhere, I'm pretty sure that 60 was the lowest possible figure, and that 64 was the lowest, personally, that I've ever seen. And like I said, 353 or 363 is the highest I've ever seen. But it's supposed to go up to 400. So, Miki says solar minimum also gives the medium wave a boost. Radio Fada from the UAE from on 1575 can be regular here in Sherwood Park during solar minimum. Wow. You got low noise, so it's really, really amazing. And really amazing. And the medium wave band does propagate very well in solar minimum. That is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Vals, you should be hearing European long wave stations sometimes. Never. I think I've heard 162 kilohertz a very long time ago when the noise level was very low. But I don't hear any long wave stations here at all. And for long wave, a very long antenna is better. So my antennas might be my antenna is a little short for that also. Enoch Navdal, nice to have you on board. Sparky Spogolium, hey there, nice to have you here. Richard Cook is not receiving grease. Nicola Hughes says Stanag at 4655. What else do we have? Thanks for welcome. Sheldon, I just out of the blue like this, if for some reason, weather-wise or anything, whatever happens, for some reason, one day, one Sunday morning, you were unable to do the show, I'd be happy to do something. I just need to know how it works. But if you ever want to meet up sometime and maybe have somebody that could fill in the extreme cases where nobody can show up, just give me a shout. I'd be happy to check it out, and I'd be happy to do it actually. So just give me a shout if it ever happens for some reason. I'd be happy to do it. Inner Control says the X-Max is showing some 10-meter contacts in the US. Yeah, and I think here I have somebody in the chat, the IRC chat, somebody, SWL2E0REE, says 11 meters is open today in the USA. So there's probably some sporadic E-skip. And that's why, once again, I always want to say, please, do listen in on higher frequencies. Because even when solar activity is low, there are other phenomena that will have higher frequencies propagating. That's very important. Michael Langer, nice to have you here. And could you mention what your usual show times and days, and thank you. For the radio shows, I'm here every Friday at 2000 UTC. So if you just remember that the Friday show is always a thing, I'm there every Fridays at 2000 hours UTC. And on Saturdays, we're here every 2 weeks. So we got a show today. That means next Saturday, I'm not here. The next Saturday show will be Saturday, January the 27th, basically. So just to say, and I've got the tech shows on Tuesdays, also 2000 hours UTC on the Windows channel. And by the way, Sheldon, here the roads are not too bad in Montreal, and it's actually getting better. So I think it should be not too bad for the show tomorrow. I'm pretty sure it's going to be cold though. It's going to be really cold. Andy Kelly, nice to have you here. 11-meter band was open today. Suddenly, Illinois Stan says channel 6 CB is a great way to tell if skip is rolling in. Absolutely. And I will tune it right now and see if we can hear anything on channel 6. So anything on channel 6, check it out. I'm not hearing anything now. We'll see if I'll keep it open in the background. Maybe sometime we'll hear something in on the channel 6, sorry, which is 27025, by the way, 27025 kilohertz. So Andy Coley's first time too. Cool. Hey, my friend from Greece. Hello there. Nice to have you on board. Here controls can receive 198 kilohertz, which usually does not come in too well here. So interesting. And yeah, channel 6, the Super Bowl. 198 BBC 4. I was listening to it on the Swedish SDR the other day, by the way. So what else do we know about solar activity? Well, we know that it could be extreme also. And it could be extreme at any time. So one idea of what extreme is when the sun has many sunspots and the magnetic field will suddenly get entwined, all mixed up. And now that creates a possible moment where the magnetic fields might touch or might snap and cause what we call a solar flare and or a coronal mass ejection. So when a solar flare happens, it's simply the magnetic field on the sun that explodes in humongous amounts of energy. Even a small solar flare is like, you know, so many times, thousands of times, if not hundreds of thousands of times bigger than the biggest atomic bomb we've ever exploded on Earth. It's amazing the amount of energy the sun is actually sending out. And, you know, that's the thing about solar activity. It might happen. And when a solar flare happens, well, it will send more or less a huge amount of particles towards the Earth. And that will cause all sorts of problems. And one great example that we have, and that I have in my living memory, and some people might remember that, is a X15 solar flare that happened in 1989. So solar flares have three different measuring scales. There's so you have the smallest flares are the C flare. The average or medium-sized flares are M flares, and the most powerful flares are X flares. And the scale here is exponential, so that means from one scale to the other, it's millions of times stronger. It's amazingly stronger every time you go to change scales. When you get to X flares, they are some of the strongest flares the sun can actually give out. The strongest measured flare, okay, measured because we have examples of flares that probably were more than that, but measured by instruments, because the other ones, the ones that are stronger, were actually overloading instruments, so there's just an estimation. But the strongest flare ever measured, once again, X26, which is huge. And this will disrupt shortwave. What happens when a solar flare happens? In the minutes that follow, so you know that some types of energy, like light from the sun, take about 8 minutes to arrive to Earth. So in the 8 minutes that follow, typically a huge solar flare, there will be destruction of the ionosphere, pretty much. It will be zapped out by the sun. And what it creates is the Earth side that is looking at the sun, so the daytime side of Earth, will suddenly see the signals on shortwave disappear. I've had that, and I've seen that over the years happen several times. You're listening to that station, it's really strong, and then suddenly it fades out, and then it's totally gone. Now, that effect doesn't last very long. It's anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours, the time that the ionosphere will reconstruct itself with the energy from the sun. And that's the first effect that you will see from a solar flare. The solar flare will send a certain amount of particles, a coronal mass ejection, towards the Earth, depending on the size of the flare. And also, there's other factors, because you can have a huge flare send a very small cloud of particles, and you can have a smaller flare send a huge cloud of particles. So there's all sorts of interactions that will decide how big, but most of the time, bigger flares will send more particles. And these will arrive to Earth later, typically a couple of days later. Anywhere from 48 to 72 hours after the coronal mass ejection. Also, to have an effect on Earth, the solar flare must be Earth directed. So there's a solar disk. If it's on the side of the disk, we might not have an effect except just the shortwave blackout that will temporarily, because the coronal mass ejection is moving away from us. But if it's directed towards Earth, then that coronal mass ejection will be actually hitting Earth a couple of days later. What does that do? Now it has a different effect. It will interact with the Earth's magnetic field. And the Earth's magnetic field, when a strong cloud of particles from the sun hits, kind of resonates a little bit like a bell. And it moves. It's not something that's static. It moves because a strong solar flare will actually push the geomagnetic field of Earth and change the shape of it. So a lot more particles will actually rain down on the Earth's atmosphere. So when these particles touch the Earth's atmosphere, that's what you see as aurora borealis. And the different colors mean different atoms in our atmosphere is excited by the energy from the blast from the sun. And when we get geomagnetic storming, that also will change or will sometimes make shortwave propagation really bad or change the pattern of propagation. Because it doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, it might be a change in pattern. Enhanced signals from north-south and no more signals east-west. And solar activity, the higher in latitude you are, the closer to the pole you are, south or north, the more effect it has when it arrives. And so that also will change our propagation. And so you might be listening to stations for 5 days in a row, coronal mass ejection from a solar flare arrives on Earth, geomagnetic storms, and that signal is not there for a couple of days. Geomagnetic storms can last anywhere from a couple of hours to several days, depending on what is the cause and how strong it was, because the magnetic field of Earth, once it's been pushed and it's been altered by the solar flare, might actually take some time to kind of come back to its normal shape. And that will cause all sorts of currents. And one fantastic example, March of 1989 here in Quebec, is one of the examples that solar activity can really create a huge problem in the power grids and in radio propagation. In March of '89, there were a couple of flares. One was an X15 that were Earth directed, and it was on, I believe, March, I think it's March the 23rd or something like that. There was a, or maybe earlier, I'm trying to remember what date it was in March, but I remember it was in the month of March. It could be earlier in the month also. Basically, the solar storm, I think I got it here. I'm just going to check. March 1989. March 13th. Here we go. So there was X-class solar flares, and on March 13th of 1989, at 2:44 a.m. Eastern time, a huge cloud of particles from the sun hit the Earth's atmosphere and the geomagnetic field, and it reacted so strongly that actually the power grid in Quebec went down. And the reason why is because, first of all, the power grid here in the province of Quebec is very good at actually having problems with geomagnetic storming, because we have power lines that are very far latitude north. So you have a lot of our generators basically that are from waterfalls that are way far north in the part in Quebec, near James Bay, which is the southern tip just below the Hudson's Bay. So that, plus the fact that there's 1,000 kilometers of wire coming up to down here in Montreal before anybody gets electricity here, the fact that it's close to the geomagnetic pole, and the fact that here we have also something very unique in Quebec. Ground currents are not reacting in the same way as other areas around Earth, because we are on the Canadian Shield, which is basically Canada. A big chunk of Canada is sitting on a very huge rock, and the soil is very thin in most places over that area, and that also creates a problem for the return of currents within the circuit of the power grid. So what happened that day? Geomagnetic storm was so intense, they created currents, and the currents, not being able to go through the ground that much here, they saw the nice power lines and said, hey, that's such a great way to just go somewhere. Well, geomagnetic storms don't actually think, but that's pretty much what happened. They use the power lines. And so immediately that made all the circuits that want to protect the grid, they all tripped. But it created a problem. It created overloading in different places. And I remember there's an image of a huge transformer. I believe it's in James Bay at the LG1 or LG2, one of the biggest power generators we have here in Quebec. That was totally burned out. It's amazing, and all the plates, the big, imagine these are huge. They're, just the generator itself is like as big as the house here, and if not more. And it actually just melted because the currents were way too high. And so we were out of power for something like 12 to 18 hours typically. So that gives you an idea of what can happen, but there's other interactions. So I'm going to take a little pause here, and we're going to continue our little solar activity talk as we go through. So what else do we have? What else do we have? Sheldon Harvey says, just a plug for international. Oh, absolutely. International Radio Report is the weekly show for Sheldon. A 30-minute show about radio, Sundays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 15:30 UTC on CKUT 9.3 FM. You can live stream it, absolutely. So you can listen live. You can also listen to the archive of the show, by the way. Absolutely. Okay, what else do we have? Eric Control says, long wave medium wave is amazing when you're over Europe. I was in the UK a year ago, and there were loads of signals at night. Oh, absolutely. That's why I like the listening to SDRs, to software-defined radios in Europe on SDR.HU, because it is so cool to listen to what is not here. Here, I mean, we only get stations from the United States, in parts of Canada, and there it's just crazy. You'll listen to tons of countries in long wave and medium wave. It's pretty amazing. Michael Angers, 15140 Radio Havana, Cuba is direct from Cuba. There's no relay. Cuba doesn't relay. I don't think Radio Havana Cuba has any relays anywhere. It's always direct from Cuba. WRMI relays broadcast to Cuba, but Cuba jams them, absolutely. Like 9955 is one. I often hear on 9955 the jammer. I don't hear WRMI, but I'll hear the jammer really strong. Chris Freitas is listening to WRMI with some music on 93.95. Check it out here. Yep, some music right now. So this is 93.95 with some music coming in. S9, around S9, so not too bad. Hey, Nick Casarino, N6 VOA from California. Hello there, my friend. Happy New Year. I hope you are well. It's nice to have you on board. Absolutely, nice to have you on board. Luis Arevalo from East Los Angeles. Nice to have you here. Michael K. Thank you very much for the nice comments for the shows. Always nice to do these things. I just love it. Dex Farr is listening to 4625, the buzzer. Tried yesterday, but I didn't hear anything. So, Mikhail Dolmaj want to talk about the 28-day rotation. So there is large active sunspot that are produced in CME. So yeah, that is also absolutely something that is interesting to check out. When sunspots appear in the sun. So sunspots, okay, are very often short-lived. So I'd say the majority of sunspots on the sun are, from just last a couple of days to a week and a half, and they're gone. But some of the biggest active regions, they actually might last a very long time and actually come back several rotations. I believe the one that's lived the most, I read somewhere the one that that lived the longest was something like 3 rotations It was visible for 3 rotations before it disappeared. So because the sun is rotating around 28 days, you will typically, if there's a very, very active region that leaves the sun, you might actually see it come back later on because of the 28 days rotation. So if it's beginning of the month and you've got one and it disappears, you might have it somewhere at the end of the month again, reappear on the other side of the sun, or a little later in the month actually. Radio free whatever, 6950 upper sideband. Let's check that out. 6950. Don't hear anything. Nothing heard here. But 6950 is getting radio free whatever on the pirate radio. So pretty cool. MDK2 says kind of a big skips on it to go to Indiana QASDR to get it. Huh, interesting. Bob Corgi, hello there. And yes, having a great day, absolutely. Thomas Taylor, hello there. Nice to have you here. So, yeah, well, it was the same song, Lion Sleep Tonight, Richard Cook on 93.95 at the moment. So Sheldon has a AM station, 14198 upper sideband. Let's check that out. 14198 upper sideband, amateur station. Let me just see if we can hear it. I'll just put it in the background here a little bit. See if I can hear it. Are you getting it at your location, Sheldon? J70VR from the island of Dominica, working most American stations. So Michael Langer's recording radio free whatever. Sheldon has a weak signal from 6950. Cool. And we are once again today above the 100 level of people watching the show, which is kind of cool. Nice to have everybody on board. And we are just to talk about the next show, which will be Friday once again. So Friday 19th of January will be the next show for those that wonder. And we're already an hour 15 into the show, and I am drinking wine, so cheers everybody. So Sheldon's hearing the Dominica ham with fair signal. Dial-up of stations trying to contact them. Interesting. Oh, I think I got it now. Yeah, I'm just hearing it now. I think I heard him just now. I seem to have a higher noise level today for some reason. But I know that the neighbors downstairs are there, and they weren't there for the past couple of days. Mad Headstrong has 14198 megahertz copy. Pretty cool. Chris Freta has a good copy of WRMI on his Ethan Traveler 3. Tiny radio despite a lack of keypad and SSB, surprisingly good. So pretty cool. And what about having an evening show? What do you mean by evening? Later in the day? What about what time frame are you thinking about, Luis? I've I like I always say, I do get comments sometimes about people saying, oh well, when you do that show at that time or that time, 2000 hours. It's pretty amazing. So actually Perry Island is far from a lot of houses of vaults. It has almost zero noise there. I can tell you it's very quiet. And because the houses around it are very far, there's the ones on the other side of the river, because it's not in the middle of the city. It's really on the north shore of the island of Montreal. And on the bottom part, the north shore, is a huge park. So the closest houses are really far from that specific position. And the noise level is zero. It's almost zero. It's I put 100 feet of wire there, and the the signal level on any portable doesn't even move up. So it's very, very quiet condition. Might not be totally, not be totally the best, or like, you know, being in the middle of a forest somewhere. So, you know, maybe a little bit more noise, but it's typically extremely quiet. And there's really, you know, like nothing around it. There's the power lines that make a little bit of noise, but if I have the I go there on the completely the tip, really the east tip of the island. It's actually not bad at all, and it really shows. I mean, I receive so many things there that I don't hear at all over here. It's just crazy. But you know, if anybody would compare, especially if you have, you know, I bring portables there. If I'd bring like the ICOM or something, I probably could measure a little more, you know, noise there versus noise, you know, in the middle of nowhere. That for sure probably is different. But it's still very, very low noise. Have you acquired the new Ethon radios? I'm curious on your thoughts on them. I've not acquired them, but I've seen many people that have the new Ethon Travelers seem to be very, very happy with them. They seem to perform really, really well. So it's really, really crazy. It's, you know, I think they are very, they seem to be very interesting. I never had one myself, but these seem to be pretty good. Joe Dickinson, nice to have you here. And as MDK2 says, very, very surprising sometimes that you don't have to be very far. You know, just look here, a great example. Just going to the park. I have a park, you know, about half a kilometer from here. I can go there walking distance in the summer. And I went there one summer day, and that's one thing I plan to do a little more this year. I went there with a fold-up chair, and I set up about 20 feet, 25 feet of wire in the park, in a tree. And you know, I'm maybe not even 100 feet away from the houses. And the noise is already so low that I am receiving 10 times more signals than I am here. So it's pretty surprising sometimes. You don't have to be that far to actually enjoy amazingly good, quiet conditions. Gordon Treadwell, nice to have you here. VE6 GPT. So what else do we have? What else do we have? Really? Let's I was gonna check it out here. Remove. Oh, that's interesting. I'm looking at it here too. Yeah, there's no more ban button on the There's no more option to ban. I don't have it too. That's interesting. That's interesting. Really no more options to ban. You can delete messages, but you can't but you have something called hidden. Let me just see here. Remove. What did that do? Yeah, I think hidden is like ban. That's what I think it is. You changed the wording, but I'm pretty sure hidden is kind of like a ban. I don't know why they changed the I don't know why they changed the options here. And I think this ID user on this channel, I think that's the thing. And then there's reports. You can report the user. By reporting the user, you might get his account deleted or something. But huh. So anyway, it's okay as long as he can't post anymore. That's all what we need. So follow my advice and order the SDR Play RSP1A. Well, I think it's a good device, and I think you're gonna have a lot of fun with that for sure. For sure. What else do we have? Timo93, good evening. Nice to have you on board. And yep. It's pretty much a hide that is the, you know, and, you know, yeah, that's pretty much it. Actually, exactly like Vault says. When if I ban somebody, if I, you know, when actually the wording says it, you're preventing anyone from seeing whatever that person posts. But that person still posts and thinks it's okay. So, yeah, Radio Free Whatever is something like radiofreewhatever@gmail.com. It's something as simple as that, if I remember well. Let's just check it out here. Radio Free Whatever email. And here I've got Radio Free Whatever. I've got dickweeddj@gmail.com. So that's kind of interesting. But I'm not sure they also had Radio Free Whatever at Gmail. Here, the one that shows here on HF Underground is dickweeddj@gmail.com. So it could be that also. Yeah, that's what I found also, as MDK2, dickweeddj@gmail.com. Seems to be the email for Radio Free Whatever. So, Ronald Mullis, nice to have you here. And nice to have you on board. Says, funny thing happened again, the UK Absolute Radio's rock and roll show is 1215 kilohertz, but I can also copy them on shortwave 40 to 30 kilohertz. Must be harmonics or something. Yeah, especially when they're strong, and sometimes it's because they have a little bit of you know, transmitter issues. But a lot of these you hear on the second or third or fourth harmonic. So typically the second harmonic is double the frequency. So 1215 would be well, 1215 goes to 2430. 2430. So it's kind of interesting you hear it on 4230 because an harmonic of 1215 should technically be on 2430 or on 4860. What another thing that can happen is sometimes two transmitters not far from each other have an interaction and create an harmonic and some kind of an odd frequency somewhere. So you know, Bobby Burgess, yeah, YouTube, you know, YouTube is YouTube. There's so many things broken. You know what I hate the most about YouTube these days? You post a damn video, and for 24 hours, a ton of my videos get flagged. Well, we have no advertisers for you right now. And I gotta, you know, like ask for a revision before it comes back. It's like crazy. Their automated system is totally broken. So VS6 GPT, and really nice to have you on board. Christian Ferland, salut, bonjour, bienvenue. Welcome to the show. Radio Free Whatever. Does not QSL. Oh, not even an EQSL. Interesting. Interesting. Eric Cottrell says our local shortwave group went up to Maine for a quiet off-season received location years ago. Problem is the area went from summer homes to year-round and the noise is bad now. Yeah, that's the bad stuff. Oxford Shortwave Log. Nice to have you on board. That's the bad stuff. You know, when some area becomes too popular, it's just crazy. Just crazy. So Vault says, which effectively means you post a video and during the first peak of watching it, there's no monetization. You know, that's the scary thing. It's you know, it seems to happen automatically with the clock. So it's like when it passes midnight. So what happens is, say I post a video, and it happens for a lot of videos, not all of them. But a lot of my videos are flagged like that for the first 24 hours. So what's happening is I will get monetization and the views are okay. Then suddenly I'll check out the next morning and the monetization icon becomes orange. Which means, oh, you might not be monetized right now because we don't see advertisers suitable for what you just did. So basically, it's just crazy because it's like, come on. And especially, like you say, the first 24 to 48 hours are pretty much the prime and the peak of the video. After that, the views are down. So it is kind of, you know, it's driving me crazy. Totally. And YouTube is just a piece of crap. I'm just gonna check something, guys. I have the impression that I don't know if it's deer, but I have the impression that yeah, there's a little cat here, and he's coming over. So hey guys, there's Mr. Paul that was scratching on the door, and you probably just heard him now. So it's Mr. Paul the cat. Come over. Come say hi to everybody. Mr. Paul the cat. Come on. Come on. Come over. Say hi to everyone. Say hi to everybody. Here, I'm gonna take a little, here we go. Mr. Paul. He's saying hello to everybody. There we are. Say hey, Mr. Paul. So anyways, it's crazy. You know, YouTube is driving me totally nuts, and in many ways. So, Sheldon talking about NFL playoffs. I'm already preparing myself for the Super Bowl party, which is happening here. So I'm already. I need to do that little party and send the invitations on Facebook. So. So Richard says, interesting to see Radio Romania isn't on right now. So hey Paul A. Steckler, nice to have you on board. No NFL on shortwave from what I know of. I don't think there is anything related to the NFL. Yeah, there's nothing at all right now of Radio Romania, for sure. So kind of interesting. They're not on. What are you doing? So, what else do we have? Oxford Shortwave Black says, I get the same incorrect flags up on my video show. Yeah, it's just crazy. That automated system is totally broken. Totally broken, you know? I mean, we don't post things, and, you know, I'm careful. I have to be careful, because I don't know Oxford Shortwave Log, if you've noticed, but if you use the wrong words, you get flagged immediately and it never comes back. So if I post a video of, you know, the voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran, for example, forget it. Monetization is gone and it ain't coming back. So, you know, it's just crazy. So, so it's on 7310. Let's check 7310 here for Romania. 7310. Yep, Romania is on 7310. Gonna hear it here.
From the audio recordings made public in June 2017. According to the Judicial Inspection Court, Laura Kodruta-Kövesi addressed fellow prosecutors using a superior and aggressive tone, which was a
so Radio Romanian 7310. So Mr. Paul saying hi to everybody. There we go. Look at the guy. Look at that guy. So it's just crazy. It's just really crazy. What else do we have? Nice cat. Yeah, everybody loves the cat. And really nice to have. Yeah, seeing videos of that RSP-1A and against the Perseus, Elan, all of that. That would be really, really cool. Oh yeah, the mention of North Korea. Absolutely. You got to stop mentioning North Korea, Iran. If you post something about Saudi Arabia, they all get totally. I'm not sure he's starved. He's in love right now. And so well, you should, you know what, Erica Trolfer says BBC has their Sports World program on the weekend. So yeah, BBC and what is there? Yeah, mostly BBC. There's a lot of sports stuff on the weekend. Monsieur Paul Le Chat, yes. You know what, Chris Freitas, you should monetize. I got that from a few people. There's a few people that they've told me, oh, I made a YouTube channel to do things. And when I tell them, oh, do you monetize? They're always telling me, well, you know, it's not worth the trouble and everything. It is. You know what? If you get just a few bucks, it's a few bucks. And you should get them. I mean, you have YouTube videos, go and get the cash you can get. I mean, even if it's only, you know, a couple of bucks a month and that takes time before you get a payment, just the fact that you post videos on YouTube, you should automatically monetize it. I mean, it's not more of trouble because basically, you know, you're just monetizing. You just post your videos and make sure they're monetized, and that's it. And you know, if you can make a few bucks, why not get the few bucks that you can get? I think it's something that you should do it. So, you know. Funny, my channel's 2 most watched videos are Voice of Korea. You know, there are things like that. There's even videos sometimes you're like, what? It doesn't have to do with being in Canada or nothing, as Southern Illinois saying. It has to do with YouTube getting more and more sensitive. More and more sensitive on things that are not really necessarily what people want to see. So words like, you know, Saudi Arabia and, you know, with everything is happening with the Muslim world and, you know, North Korea and things that are political and things that are, or that could be controversial to some extent, they are going crazy over that. And YouTube, everywhere around the world, has that. It's not a question of, you know, being YouTube Canada or US or whatever. It simply is YouTube. And they apply pretty much the same rules everywhere. And I mean, they are overly sensitive lately. One of the reasons where they're going a little more crazy also on YouTube is the fact that last year they had a ban of a lot of big companies. Because big companies said, whoa, there's this ISIS video and I'm getting a Coca-Cola ad before a, ISIS video or some guy with some guns, or it's not what we want to associate the brand with. So a lot of announcers actually kind of, got out of YouTube last year. Since then, it's been worse. And the problem with YouTube is that there's not someone doing anything. I'm just going to let the cat out. The problem is that it's an automated system on YouTube. And that is the big problem. Their automated system is broken. The automated system that YouTube uses to flag videos, man, what a piece of crap, totally broken shit. That's all I gotta say. And I wish they would, and I'm not the only one. I'm a small YouTuber. But even the top YouTubers are going crazy and saying, whoa, your automated system is completely nuts. And so you gotta be careful with the words you use. And some videos that I will do and talk about subjects, I will not mention in the words anywhere that I'm talking about that inside it, because I know they're going to flag it as, oh, I'm sorry, but we can't monetize this thing. And from time to time, randomly, out of the blue, I'll have a video that's been monetized for 2 years, and someday I get an email and say, oh, by the way, we can't monetize this anymore. Forget about it. Just crazy. So, but you should, anybody that does YouTube videos of any kind, do turn on monetization. So, do turn on monetization. So, just crazy. I'm pretty much the same, Eric Cottrell. I listen to the BBC NewsHour via the VPR station in Burlington, Vermont on 107.9 at 9 a.m. in the morning. And sometimes I'll have the BBC over my internet. Actually, I sometimes think about that because I've got the Sanjian WFR20, which is a internet Wi-Fi radio. And, I paid like almost $300 for that thing. And I'm just looking. It's crazy because I sometimes think, well, I spend $300 to listen to the BBC 90% of the time. Because you know what? The first week I had it, I was going through different countries and the different streams and the stuff. But I don't know why. It's like, it's not the same. I don't get a kick out of, oh, well, that's a stream from, Romania on my Wi-Fi radio. I don't get really excited. But if I listen to Radio Romania from Romania on the shortwave radio, it isn't at all the same thing. At all. It's crazy. Abonano 24601, hey there. Could you do me a favor and explain the world clock behind you? I'm bad at explaining things. The thing is, okay, so basically this is a simple clock. It's a regular clock. And in the shortwave hobby, we simply use UTC time. So it's universal time. It's 0 degrees longitude. It's over Greenwich, England. That's where UTC time takes its source. And so universal time is different per your area, but is always the same for everybody around the world. So if it's 21:43 right now, everybody in the chat room is at 21:43 UTC. That's the cool thing of UTC. We're all in the same time. So we all know that if a broadcast, like my shows, they start at 2000 UT. I always mention UT because in the radio sphere, one of the basic things everybody should know is when is UTC time, what is the UTC time right now compared to where I live. So here in Montreal, Eastern time of North America, 5 hours behind in the winter, 4 hours when we are in the summertime. because UTC never changes. Our summertime changes. We have daylight savings time. It changes the reference to the UTC, but UTC stays always at the same thing. It never changes. It doesn't have daylight or not. It is always the same. So in order for anybody around the world to understand when will I hear such station, for example, Radio Romania, if they'd say, oh, we are on at midnight Romanian time, well, we'd have to just, what the hell is midnight Romanian time compared to Eastern time? If you'd listen to Radio Australia when it was on the air, oh, we'll be there at, 5 p.m. Sydney time. When is that in Montreal? What's that time in Montreal? So each time zone would have to, it would go crazy. We would have to kind of understand what time zone is what time here. Totally nuts. So of course, universal time fixes that. As long as you know the difference between you and universal time, you will always know when a broadcast occurs. So my show's at 20 hours UTC. As long as you know when 2000 hours UTC is in your time zone, you know when I'm on the air. Radio Romania, 2130 UTC broadcast. As long as you know what 2130 UTC is for our time zone, it works. So that's the thing about universal time. You just need to know what universal time it is and how much, how many hours it is off from your time zone. But what I often say, because there's someone the other day was saying, oh, well, I always mess up what UTC time it is compared to the local time. And one of the things that I think any shortwave listener should have next to the radios is a clock that is always set at UTC and never changes. This clock is always on UTC. So it's a no-brainer. I want to listen to something that's like, even though in my head I easily change and transfer that time to the time zone, I will usually just, look at the clock time. Oh, it's 21:47 UT. No-brainer. I just look at the clock, look at the schedules, and see what's on, That's pretty much it. François Gagnon, bonjour. Have you ever considered becoming, many times I've thought about it, of course, through the years, But it's, being a ham radio operator has been, I think, a mix of two things. It's been a lack of time, meaning that I have a lot of difficulty just finding the time to do what I do already. And I think it's also a lack of, there was nothing that actually pushed me into getting it. But, we should absolutely, I should get my ham license, and, that's something I should do. And, it'd be nice also because I could do the ham license thing and post videos showing, how I did it and everything. You know what? When I go to Industry Canada, and I do the exam, they have the 100, random question exam on Industry Canada. Last time I did it was like 85%. I already have the knowledge to just go through it without any problems. So, I really need to take the time to do it, basically. What else do we have? MDK2 says the problem with streaming is that they won't make anything they broadcast on shortwave available, and pretty much nothing. Pretty much nothing from shortwave is there. There's a few things, like if I don't hear WRMI, I don't do it. For example, yesterday evening I was thinking, oh, WRMI doesn't come in, so I can't hear all the relays. But there's I could listen. I've got the stream programmed in my my CNG Wi-Fi radio of WRMI's different frequencies. But for some reason, I don't know. I don't want to listen. And there's a lot of stuff that's blocked. And that is one of the major issues, for sure. the major issues is that everything's blocked everywhere. So, you know, I often go to a stream under a Wi-Fi radio and said, oh, by the way, you can't listen to this because it's blocked in your country. Totally crazy. Well, I see positive in the internet. I mean, the internet brings very beautiful things, like the ability to do this. And this is a great example of using the internet to exactly not destroy shortwave, but to promote shortwave. So it's not just negative. There's some beautiful things about the internet. It's changed the way we communicate. It's changed forever the way we interact with each other. Social media and everything. Pretty amazing stuff. Amazing that we can do a live show like this. You know, I mean, 30 years ago, doing something that people would watch live meant they had to watch on their TV, meant you had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do something. You have almost no, you know, here I have almost no money spent in the streaming stuff. You know, I have lighting systems that don't cost that much, required at least a computer that's just powerful enough to, you know, do the stream, a webcam that's barely $100, and you know what? You're doing something on the internet. And of course, you could go much higher. You could go much more, you know, professional and buy really expensive equipment. But that's one amazing thing about the internet. You can, for a very small amount of money, just broadcast your viewpoint of whatever to people that want to listen to it over the web. It destroys in a way because it, you know, let's face it, I watch the newspaper or the news through the internet and have absolutely no, I don't want to subscribe to a paper or newspaper. I don't really want that. I tend to disagree about one thing because that's something I hear very often. The internet destroyed shortwave radio, and I do not agree with that. Personally, I don't. I don't think the internet broke shortwave. I think even if the internet would not be here, we would not necessarily have more stations on the air. And we see that a lot of stations, BBC, Voice of America, even China Radio, they do see shortwave and the importance of shortwave. It's important, shortwave. There's a lot more people listening every day to the radio on shortwave than people going on the internet to listen to radio, that's for sure. And the thing that destroyed shortwave is purely and simply money versus, you know, what you want to broadcast to the world and say whatever, whoever you are. A lot of it is money, and a lot of it is the noise level has simply gone up so much on shortwave that a lot of people that used to listen to it, you know, I'd be interested to see one thing. How many people left shortwave listening because they just had so much noise that it was becoming impossible to listen to anything anyways? So, you know. Radioactive. Nice to have you here. Eric says he's got the Logitech squeeze box for internet stream. It is useful to listen to other areas that have events going on. Yeah, that's for sure. And you know what, I'd say if I have one use, that's something that I kind of like, is the ability to, oh, there's something happening in Los Angeles. I'm going to go on my Wi-Fi radio and go to California and check out all the stations that are in LA. And I will be listening to one of the news stations out of LA, streaming on the web, that's giving up to the hour You know, it's just crazy. It's just you know, that's cool. Listening to local AM or FM broadcasts from some other area, it's kind of cool. One of the things also that I hate about the internet radio is, for example, if you don't know from where it comes from. For example, you might go to I want to go to Zimbabwe, and you go to Zimbabwe and there are a list of stuff, but the majority of the Zimbabwe radio stuff that's there ain't coming from there. It's from the US or Europe or places like that that they decided to do a voice for their country of some sort. But it's not a stream coming from Zimbabwe per se, except for if you really get the, you know, Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation or something. That's the thing. And I think that it's a different thing. And one of the things for sure, because every time we talk about that, I get someone said, oh, well, you know, it's bad to have that on the internet and have the streaming, and I don't like the streaming. And it's like, I consider that two different things totally. And shortwave is shortwave, and the internet radio stuff is internet radio stuff. And the last thing I got to say about that shows you how people don't listen to stations on the internet. Almost every station that decided we're going web only now, they all will tell you they don't have the same audience they had on shortwave. They had more people listening on shortwave because people don't move there, for sure. When's my first show on about shortwave on YouTube? It dates back to what, 2012, 13? When was it? I forgot when it was. Let me just check that out. Can anybody find that? We found it last year at some point. We were talking about it, and I remember we were going to shortwave show, and I'm trying to remember when it was. I seem to think it was somewhere in October or something. So I don't know. I've been on for at least 4 years, 3 to 4 years. That's for sure. Even more. I think it's somewhere in 2012. The first time I tried it. For sure. Okay, what my time is in Ognevdal, it's in 3 minutes. It's going to be 5 p.m. In the afternoon. So we're late afternoon, early evening, 5 p.m. in a couple of minutes here. So I believe I've heard BBC Sports World Live broadcasting stuff here. I think I did. You can listen to the angry phones on CG. Man, you know what? But at least I'm fair in that I can't stand CJAD, especially when they have call-in shows about whatever is happening in Quebec. But I'll say, and I'll be very fair, I can't on the other side either. I can't listen to a French Quebec station talking about what's happening in Quebec, or even worse, talking about what's happening in the rest of Canada. These are the two things that I can't listen to. So what I'll say here is, I don't like the CG80 style of programming, like I don't like the French talk station style of programming. Equal. I hate it, especially when they start talking about bitching each other, you know? I can't stand that, you know? Listening 2 minutes to CG80 and there's this angry 90-year-old woman saying, hey, those Quebecois French people are just, yeah? And the same, I can't, you know, when somebody in the French one says, hey, oh, that English Canada? Yeah. Shut up, use the radio waves or something that's constructive and interesting. Stop bothering everyone. Oh, man. So, just tells you the beautiful tensions we have in Canada. What else do we have here? Buzzer on 4625. Richards is receiving that. Going down a little Brett Wayne, KC2NXP. Hello there. Off work, plowing snow all day. Yeah, pretty much what everybody's doing here too. It's very, we had a lot of snow, more than a foot. Chris Freitas sees the internet as a complement to the radio hobby. I actually kind of like the internet for the shortwave listener. Because the other thing you got to remember is that it's so easy now to not just stay in touch, but to have all the information we need about the shortwave stuff we listen to. There are tons of resources out there about the frequencies, you know. I mean, in the 80s, those that never seen that, in the 80s, I had to wait for some club bulletin of some sort to get schedules that were halfway outdated of stations and what times and frequencies they're using, or, oh, the winter schedules are coming. I'm going to wait for that Radio Berlin schedule by mail to know what frequency to listen to. You know, that was the thing. You know, it's funny, but receiving program guides and frequencies from stations was a big thing in the 80s. Because it was like, oh, these are the frequencies they're going to use. Okay, cool. I'm going to keep that. And you know, you had that pile of program guides of like, you know, 70 stations. Because you wanted to know when they were on the air. And you were looking at their, you know, program guides all the time. So, it's just crazy. I think we all learn all the time. We still learn today in NDK too. But it's just crazy. Hey B, nice to have you here. Nice to have you on board, Tom. Jean Paradis, nice to have you on board. Says, great show going in the noise area. I found that loop antenna solved my noise problems. So I need to check that out. 3830 Radio Man, hello there. Long time no see. Pretty cool to have you on board. For sure. Lady Addis, I think shortwave, hello there by the way. I think shortwave will see a resurgence as the internet gets more closed off. It seems that powers that be are realizing how open the internet really is. There's absolutely, and that's always something, you know. One person that's not following me anymore, because he sent me an email about 1.5 years ago when I was doing live shows and telling me, well, you know, I don't like your doomsday talk about internet and you know, shortwave and stuff. And he was just referring to the fact that what I just want to point out is the big governments have the internet switch. The governments can decide what's on and what's not. And it's easy to switch off the voice of someone. And you don't even have to be government. Just look at YouTube. How they've closed down the free speech side. There's a lot of kind of extremist. You know, I'm not an extremist guy, so I don't like extremist talk about governments knowing everything about, you know, aliens and whatever. And it's like, that's not the kind of thing I listen to. But I think if you want to talk about it and you believe in that, why not talk about it? And the internet is closing down on that. Now, it's closing down on some of the stuff that's okay. I mean, there are some extremist content that shouldn't be there. It's just a pile of crap that's just there to angry others. And it's you know, not constructive, it's hurtful, it's just, you know, it's just like being racist if you want. But we got to be careful because we are in a moment where free speech is being a little compressed. And where do you stop? What am I allowed to say here so that my channel won't get flagged, or that, you know, YouTube will not decide, who that guy is talking about that, let's cut off the voice. And the internet, and we see it with pirate radio, for example, it's total free speech. You know, there could be a pirate radio out there that would sign on, be trash radio, totally, but it will be able to voice and say what it needs. And a great example, extremists and extremism around the world, they all want to have a shortwave voice. Why do you think they want to have a shortwave station? You know, why do you think ISIS would like to have a shortwave station? It's a very powerful one. Why do you think some, you know, government or anti-government voices want to have a shortwave voice? Because they darn know that they're going to be heard. And they won't be shut down if they do it right. Where on the internet, they'll do one show and look, it's blocked. It's over. You're not going to get it at all. So, you know. And, you know, the shortwave bands, what I mostly want to say all the time is you don't need to pay a monthly fee. You know, it costs a lot of money. I pay $100 a month for internet here. Now, of course, if I would be a regular internet user, I'd probably have a, I don't know, $40 internet connection. That would be enough, but still, you need money to pay for that internet connection every month. And a lot of people don't have that money. You know, as a tech guy, over the years, I've had a lot of people that don't have internet at home that wanted me to fix their computers because they would go to the, you know, coffee shop in the corner street to connect to the web 2 or 3 times a week, get emails, because they thought, well, you know, $50 a month for an internet connection is a lot of money. And in countries that are, you know, much more, you know, like African countries where people have a lot less money than we have, well, I think an internet connection is out of the question, but they have these little cheap radios. They work well. They do the job. And that also means shortwave listening is very inexpensive. You know. And it's pretty crazy. One of the things for sure, as Brett Wayne says, the Cold War was a big chunk of what the shortwave was. The Cold War was, and we saw immediately when the Cold War ended, the number of stations that wanted to kind of go off the air, you know, really accelerated a lot. Quebec beer cardiomyopathy. Okay. Not really. KC9QH says, I would love to visit Canada sometime. Looks like a beautiful place. Absolutely. Like the United States is a beautiful place. There's so many beautiful things to see in the US, you know, in every country in the world. Radioactive says, speaking of weather, I am at 14 Celsius and sunny here in Oregon. Wow. That's crazy. 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 So, you know, might have to mow the lawn. Yeah, better equipment and better information, but nothing to listen to. Yep. Yep. Just, it's just interesting, you know, knowing where we are and how the internet and shortwave and everything. It's pretty crazy. Dutch shortwave station. The QRM where I live is in the evening and nighttime very big over S9. Bought a QRM eliminator for 70 euros. It cost me 2 weeks to build, and now I can turn it down to S2. Cool. Why not radioactive? Take that portable and enjoy the beautiful weather, especially at this time of year. You'll know that in 3 days it's going to be minus 20. Nick Hammond says, today we have all the technology, but the quality content is missing a lot. Absolutely. Yep. Okay, Rick Control says, Canada, nice place to visit. Absolutely. Nick Hammond says, this is true for radio, TV, and music, and so on. Yeah. Wow. You know, sometimes I get these words I have a lot of difficulty with. Okay, revolutionary brewer. There, I got it. And not even the beer, the wine. I'm not even, you know. But sometimes I just hang on a word. Good point about the internet possibly being more restricted in the future. You know, it is. It looks more restricted. It looks like it's being more restricted. So, you know, pretty crazy. Yep, service providers raising prices, restriction of all sorts. Absolutely. And Vault says, from what I hear, there are plenty of shady things being done on by YouTube Russia. You know, everything is, you know. B says, hello, Gel. Only a matter of time, sir, and you will have an XH Data D808. What a radio it is. I have had mine for 3 weeks now. And man, what a great radio. Really? Cool, Tom. Kind of interesting. I did see it. I believe I read a review of it, too. That seemed to say it wasn't that bad. Kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. Where else do we have? Chris Freitas says, this winter has been so cold here. There's been a long time since we had a real winter. It's been very, very cold here. Much more than usual, for sure. Vim Bembrook, would you please explain how to make 4-1 balloon or something suitable to long wire shortwave antennas for receiving? Not in this show, but as soon as possible, some clear and detailed explanation. I'll, you know, I need to do some videos about things like that. I think that would be very, very welcome. And it's surprisingly easy to do these things also. So, I'm going to check that out. I'm going to check what I can do. Barcelona, hello there, David. EA4998URE, Shortwave, SWL. In Barcelona, Spain. Nice to have you on board. So, well, it is known, Nick Hammond says internet seems expensive there in Romania, around $8 for fiber link, 300 megabits per second. Wow, I'd like to have that for $8 an hour, $8 a month. Here it's, here in Canada we are known for two very expensive things. Some of the most expensive internet connections in the world, and the most expensive smartphone bill or cell phone bill in the world. It's totally crazy. I pay almost $100 a month for my connection for internet. I pay almost $90 a month for what I use here. So it gives you an idea that the Canadian companies are really making a lot of money over what we do on the internet and on our smartphones. So lowest speed with Comcast, pay $35 US. I do have to worry about the data cap, but streaming audio does not eat much. No, streaming audio isn't too bad. But video is a big problem. So, you know, and absolutely, you know, like Michael Danger says, government sends military shortwave stations first. Of course, because it's dangerous, shortwave stations. Pauline Steckler says, apparently in the 60s, some Quebec breweries were using a cobalt compound to stabilize beer foam. Oh, there's, we had the Dow brewery here in Quebec. And actually, for a long time, what was left, we had our planetarium, which now is changed name, but it used to be the Dow Planetarium because it had been paid by the Dow brewery. And actually, I saw a nice YouTube, there's a Quebec channel on YouTube with documentaries of all sorts of things that happen in the province of Quebec. And I saw the one on the Dow brewery. So what you're talking, Paul, is that in the 60s, the Dow beer was the most popular beer. It was far ahead of all the competition. It was the most popular beer ever. And then we started having cases of people that died. And they were people that were actually drinking that beer. And it was found that there was something in the way that the beer was done and everything to stabilize, and the way that, you know, things were not necessarily done right and everything. And in the end, well, you know, the brewery just collapsed because people wouldn't buy that beer anymore. Because, you know, it's like if we would say that, you know, a certain brand, it's simply like if you would say, oh, by the way, people are dying of Coca-Cola. Well, you know, you'd see people stop drinking Coca-Cola like right away. So it happened right there. You know, it's it was really the Dow Brewery. That's what you're talking about. And it happened in the 60s. But that was the Dow Brewery. That was the most popular beer for the province of Quebec in the 60s. It was just crazy. People would buy just that. And it's totally changed today, by the way. Totally changed. Today, the most popular beers here are microbrewed and imported beer, and you know, even the breweries like Molson and Labatt are kind of going crazy because they're like, we're not buying their stuff anymore. We're buying imported beer and microbrewed stuff now. I guess, you know, what I like to say when people say that is, yeah, it's needs a 9-1. Yeah, it's a 9-1 Ballen or Unen, absolutely. Not a 4-1. It's really a 9-1. You're right on that, Volts. So, you know, I guess what I like to say is like, well, we're a little less dumb. We now know that there's better tasting beer than the Canadian shit that they sell us. What else do we have? I had a news item. You know what? David says he's a fan of classic technologies, analog radio, vinyl records, cassette tapes. He finds them reliable, enjoyable, and secure. And there was a, last year in 2017, there was an increase of 35% in sales of cassette tapes. It seems that the young generation are actually going crazy over cassette tapes and vinyl records. So, Navdal says $60 for 100 megabit fiber. I have 120 megabits down. Here it's an hybrid. My 120 megabits is fiber up to the corner street and cable up to the house. And so 120 down, 20 megabits up for $79.95. With the taxes and everything, it's like $94 or something, $93. So, and that's not counting the cable TV I've got. So the total bill is like $175. Pretty crazy. Yeah, but here in Canada, it is known that the companies are making a huge amount of money. A huge amount of money. We are getting ripped off totally. And nobody's doing anything about it, including the government. So, you know, it's just crazy. William Helm says, wouldn't want to do a research on Ephraim John. He's retired BBC journalist from Antigua. Met him years ago. Interesting man. There's a lot of interesting people around the world, can tell you that. Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, the Dow Brewery in particular. Yep. But I think it was the only deaths came from the Dow Brewery, I believe. So I'm moving to Romania, Nick. I'm in doubt. I'm gonna have that 300 megabit connection for $8. Oh man, crazy. What else do we have here? What else do we have? Wood Guy 808. Hello there. Nice to have you on board. Take care, Radioactive. Yeah, you guys in Hawaii did have a scare today. I saw that on the news. The fake or the incorrect missile, incoming missile thing. Crazy. Crazy. And you know, you never know, because with what happens with North Korea and everything, it's like you kind of believe it could happen. You know? I would sure. I mean, if I'd be in Hawaii and thinking about that, you know what? Two of my best friends are in Hawaii vacation right now. Oh God. They're going to have some stories to talk about when they come back for sure. Case Freda says, never bought into cable TV. There are streaming services that do a better job with it, like Netflix, Hulu, and Sling. Jack Amelar, nice to have you here, says he's got 25 megabits up, down, no cable or DSL available here. Fiber beats the wireless system. So $7 a month. HM01, let's check out the Cuban numbers. 17480. Anything there? Nothing at all. And I guess that kind of shows us one thing. How the propagation is crappy on the higher frequencies very soon after the sun sets. Sun is set here for about an hour now. So just amazing when you think about it. What else do we have? So, as we continue, okay, first of all, I'm going to take a little break to say that you can help me out through PayPal if you want to help me out and give me a little something if you like what I do. PayPal.me/shortwave, or you can send it to the Yahoo email I'm posting in the chat room. Your donations help out tremendously. You can also become a patron at patreon.com. Read 8 people right now, my patrons, and giving you a little something every month. And your donations are tremendously helping out in what I do. Without your donations, probably it would not be so many shows, because I would not have been able to spend so much time doing them. And because monetization in January is the crappiest of all. It's probably the best month of the year to do something. So, hey, Michael Bott, nice to have you here. Oh, the chat seems to have come back to normal now. Something happened a little earlier. A lot more people are showing up. So, Alberto, nice to have you on board from Vermont, USA. Thank you very much for the beautiful cat. That is Mr. Paul. Sorry for the late response. Grandly, nice to have you here. Pretty cool. And hello everybody. Sorry I kind of put the chat aside and I missed out on a few things. So Granley from Connecticut, USA. How is the wine? Dry or sweet? It's more of a dry wine, and it's actually pretty good. California wine that I've got as a Christmas gift. Got a few bottles, so I decided, hey, why not open a bottle? Grasshopper, nice to have you here. And sorry once again for taking a little bit of time to say hi to all of you, and pretty cool to have everybody on board, by the way. So thanks everybody for your donations, and they are much appreciated and really help out. And especially for those that never donated and are here all the time and can spare a little something, why not think about it? J3ZEN from the Netherlands, hello there, nice to have you on board. Kevin Y, hello there. Anybody tried KC9KUH? Has anybody tried to hear WBCQ on 7490? Here 7490 is pretty dead, let's say. Mad Boy, hello there, nice to have you on board. And Cosmic Lettuce, hello there, nice to have you on board. Pretty cool, I like the name Cosmic Lettuce. Oh no, we're going to have the Earth's going to be hit by a cosmic lettuce. Kind of interesting. So, you know, the hiss from cassette tapes can be reduced. I remember I had a Walkman that had the Dolby noise reduction system. I would just press a little button and the hiss would not disappear, but it'd be much lower. But in reality, all it did was just, you know, put some kind of audio filters at the level of the hiss. And I never used it because it would change the audio of the music I listened to, and I didn't like it. So you're watching the Shortwave Radio Show. We've been on for 2 hours and 24 minutes. We're here every week on Fridays at 2000 hours UTC, and we are here every 2 weeks on Saturdays. The next radio shows, if you want to put that in your calendar, Friday, January 19th, 2000 UT. We'll have the last week of the month, Friday, January the 26th. We will have the VHF UHF show, and Saturday, January 27th is the next Saturday Shortwave show. Hope you guys are enjoying the show today. We're having a diversity of talk, and it's kind of cool. Rob H, hello there from Vancouver, BC. Nice to have you here. Richard Cook says India, strong on 7550. Let's try it out here. Can I hear India? Yeah, I hear it. It's in the noise a little bit, but it's definitely there. 7550. So, yes, blue moon in January and March. Yep, no full moon in February. That's pretty rare. Oh yeah, because it's happening quite late in January, and since February has 28 days, oh, that's an interesting one. It doesn't happen often, absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, you know, the transmitter fire, I think was the transmitter was on 7490, if I'm not mistaken. So I wonder if they might be off 7490 a little bit. That's interesting, David, about the Dolby noise reduction and everything. Vaults never liked tapes. Never liked tapes. CD was a fantastic improvement over any previous technology, and even today, there's really nothing wrong with its technology. I personally liked vinyl when I was young, because all of my friends had tapes. And I was the only one of all of my friends that was on vinyl records. And two reasons I was on vinyl: because there was not that hiss of the cassette tape. With a good turntable, good system, I thought the sound quality of the vinyl record was better than the tape. And mostly, what I liked about vinyl records is that, you know, the tapes, what I hated the most is, oh, I want to listen to the fourth song on that tape, and you would go like fast forward, wait, then stop, and no, I'm not there yet. Fast forward, wait. Oh, I've gone too far. So restart, let's go rewind. And of course, there was a little counter. But honestly, who used the counter? No one. We would just go forward or back or reverse or whatever. So I like vinyl records better. KC9KUH 8764S7. So let's check it out here. 8764 out of nothing there. Not getting anything right now. 8764. Nick Amdos says, please reconsider bringing back the tech jokes. They were real fun to listen to. I have to try to remind myself of some of the funny stories, for sure. Shortwave off the moon. Well, they would kind of pretty much go. Bounce off the ionosphere and bounce back to space. Jerry listening to the beacon from Novolazarevskaya whatever polar station. Novolazarevskaya polar station in Antarctica on 101.1. I don't get that. Never. I'm amazed you're getting that. I got absolutely nothing there. I never heard that. Oh, 9330 is the one that's off. Okay, 7490 is still on. Okay, thanks, Richard, for the correction. So it's kind of interesting. What else do we have here? It's kind of interesting, Jerry. Huh. The only thing I would do with cassette tapes, honestly, would do mixtapes. So I would take all my vinyl records, and for the portable side with my Walkman, I would have these mixtapes of everything I wanted to listen to. I got 8 tracks. I listened to the Rolling Stones for the first time in my life on an 8-track cassette. It was the album Miss You. Is it Miss You? No, it's... What's the name of that album? The one that has Miss You on it. Anyways. And I listened to Manfred Mann's Herd Band, the album Solar Fire, on 8-track cassette tapes. And my mom would listen to Bing Crosby's White Christmas on an 8-track tape also. Maybe I'm the only one that didn't bother using the tape counter. The problem also with the tape counter is that whatever device you're using is not accurate, so it's not always at the same thing. Eric Control's getting All India Radio 7550 with a fair signal and fading. Is it true that radio waves in space can take a long time to travel to its destination? Well, it's actually radio waves in space, being in an environment where there's there's almost nothing, kind of travel at the optimum speed. The biggest problem in space is that the distance is great. So it's not because it's going slower or anything, but it's because space is so huge that even at the speed of light, it takes, anywhere from minutes to hours to years, depending on where you're transmitting. To give you guys an idea, the Voyager 1 spacecraft, which is the farthest object we have right now, I think it takes something like 13 hours for the signal from the spacecraft, which is beyond Pluto, to arrive to Earth. Something like that. Or it's like 5 hours and a half, but or 6 hours, but the back and forth is 12 hours. It just shows you how huge these distances are. And so if somebody would broadcast from a very powerful VHF signal from, say, the closest star we have is the Alpha Proxima, which is part of Alpha Centauri, it would take 4 years, because it's a star that's about 4.3 light years from here. So they would broadcast a signal, would only hear it in 4 years from now. This is the same with the light. If you look at the sun, the image you have from the sun takes 8 minutes to get here. So if the sun would disappear now, we'd know only in 8 minutes from now. It's really the huge distance that makes it a long time to travel destinations, really. And it's really the huge distances. So yeah, different tape decks and different machines, that the counter is calibrated differently. So even if you'd use that, it wasn't working well on another one. MDK2 says WWVH 15 megahertz is unexpectedly strong in Denver right now. Wow, cool. I'm gonna try it. Sometimes West Coast here might make it. Who knows? I do hear WWV very faintly in the background. It is very, very faint in the background right now. So what is that strong station here? We've got some really strong station that's on, oh, it's 7375. This is Radio Marti, 7375. Delmage says, I have been trying to digitize some cassettes that I have recorded off shortwave for 40 years listening. It is going to be a huge project, but has been interesting to listen to these shows. Oh, that is really interesting. And anybody, and I need to take out the box of tapes I got here, because I got some rare transmissions in there from the 80s that I have on tape, and it'd be very nice to put them on the air. Bob T, has anyone received 4KZ in Australia on 5055? I think I received it last night at 0430 UT, but my signal was barely coming in. I know a lot of people were have logged the new Australian station. I need to try it out. So so you know, it's really crazy. So it appears I'm broadcasting from the past with old classic stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a time traveler. You're actually seeing this show broadcast in 1982. Just crazy. So yeah, most of the tapes, you know, I did kind of manage to get one tape that I have here in the box. It's and it's still in good working order, actually, so it's not too bad. A little bit more about solar activity, as we were talking about that. Solar activity. So where are we and where are we heading? That's pretty much what we what a lot of us want to know a little bit. And if you're on shortwave bands, if you listen to shortwave all the time, you of course want to know where we're heading in the solar activity. So we've just finished, we're just actually at the end of solar cycle 24. And for the past 100 years, solar cycles have been amazingly strong most of the time. One great example for those that are older, the solar activity that was in the solar cycle of 1957-58. A lot of people will remember that for the rest of their lives. It was so strong that TV stations were easily skipping to Europe from North America and the other way around. It was pretty crazy. I was fortunate in the 80s and the 90s to have some of the strongest solar cycles ever, which was really cool, and really did have some amazing propagation. And now we're at a moment where things have changed. So solar cycle 24 was a very small cycle compared to other cycles. I told you guys one of the strongest solar flux index that I've seen was 353. The highest one that I can recall that happened in the solar cycle 24 is 201, 210, something like that. We did touch the 200 somewhere in the peak for a brief time, but most of the time was below 200. Solar cycle 24 is the smallest solar cycle of the past 100 years. So what's happening with the solar cycle is that it's been a very small one. Still, at the peak, was good to support, you know, good propagation on shortwave. Still was strong enough for that. We're on the downside of the solar cycle, and what's going to happen is that we expect the bottom of the cycle to appear 2019, next year, 2020, around there. Once again, I told you that that 11-year cycle is not always just 11 years. It's kind of, it could be somewhere over here. So you got to understand that. Now, we expect, there was a new report coming out of NASA in the information with what's happening, and the kind of a forecast of what to expect in the coming years of the next, what's the next solar cycle going to be like. Now there's everything is out there. You know, I see people saying, oh well, you know, that's going to be another Maunder minimum type thing. We're going to be no sunspots and no solar cycles for the next 20 years. First, you got to know one thing, because there's a lot of false information about the Maunder minimum. So what's that? The Maunder minimum is a period of time that was from about 1645 to 1710, something like that. Let me just check it out here. I wrote down the... so it's, yeah, from 1645 to 1715. And there was not a lot of solar activity during that period of time. So it's a really long stretch of time. But one of the false information that I see pop up from time to time, people saying, oh, there was just no solar activity. No. The solar cycles were going on every 11 years during that period. But they were so small that they barely registered on the scales when you were looking at it. The other false information, a lot of people saying there were no sunspots. No, there were some sunspots. But there weren't a lot of them. And every time we were at a peak of the cycle, there were very few sunspots during the cycle. We have been in the smallest cycle of the past 100 years right now. It has a peculiar event. In the fall of this year, of last year, September, October, I don't remember which month. Funny thing, because we had a really strong solar flare, which was the strongest of all the the cycle, and the strongest in a long time. And what is interesting in there, so it shows you that, you know, even when you're going in the downward spiral of solar activity, the sun can actually pack a real big punch. One of the memorable events, if you guys want to check it out and do a little research, check out something called the Carrington event, which is a huge solar flare that happened in 1859, before technology was really there. And that thing was amazing. And it created auroras that were visible up to Cuba. So imagine, if you see Aurora Borealis over Cuba, something seriously happening right now. Solar predictions are something that are very difficult, and we saw it with Solar Cycle 24. I remember seeing the predictions. There were 3 predictions for Solar Cycle 24. One was saying Cycle 24 would have been one of the strongest ever. Didn't happen. One saying that it was really weak, and one was saying it's not going to be very strong, but it's going to be there. And that's pretty much the one that won. It's weak, but it's still a strong enough cycle to show up with spots and having a little bit of activity. In the past 10 years, we've had a few new technologies that are enabling us to observe the sun a little more. One of them is the discovery of acoustic waves within the sun itself that are reverberating inside the solar atmosphere, if you want. And using a satellite in orbit that is a satellite that only looks at the sun, we've increased a little bit of our knowledge of the sun, because we've been able, through these acoustic waves, to actually view below the sun's surface and have a better idea of what's happening underneath. What we see is that the magnetic fields within the sun are getting very weak right now. So one of the predictions is the next solar cycle is going to be even smaller than the one we just had. And this is the one that most scientists right now are saying, I think that's going to happen. That's really going to happen. We're going to have a very small cycle, much smaller than what we just had. So imagine, we had the smallest cycle in the past 100 years just come through. So if the cycle is much smaller, some people are saying, hey, we won't see a difference between solar max and solar minimum. Well, we will. One of the things that's scary, and the report talks about that, is that the magnetic fields within the sun right now are so weak. One of the reports coming out of this is stating that the magnetic fields are so weak that they're going to have difficulty piercing the sun's atmosphere. So the number of sunspots we're going to see in the next cycle are going to be rare. We're not going to see many of them. Now, that said, the same report says we don't really understand the sun very well. So, in reality, we're thinking that's going to happen, but we kind of, anything can happen, and we don't really know. And solar predictions right now are in the maybe that's what's going to happen. Now, they are better predictions than 20 years ago. But there's still predictions showing that we have a lot of lack. There's a lot of information we don't know about the sun. We still don't know much about our own star, the sun. If solar cycle 25 is that small, wow, that's going to be, you know, we're going to have to get used to the fact that shortwave propagation on higher frequencies might not happen super often. When will cycle 25 start showing up? According to the predictions they had, in 2019, somewhere in 2019, next year, we should start seeing new sunspots from the new cycle. Because when we get to solar minimum, there's that period of time where sunspots from the old cycle and sunspots from the new cycle show up. How do you know the difference? Two things. The latitude, the height at which on the surface of the sun, close to the poles or not, the spots appear are different. New sunspots tend to appear closer to the high latitudes. The old sunspots appear closer to the equator. Also, new sunspots have a reverse polarity. So if we look at the polarity of sunspots, you'll notice if you see one of the new cycle sunspots, that one has a reverse polarity, and that we can measure from Earth. We know it's reversed. So all of that together means that somewhere in 2019, 2020, we're going to start seeing the new sunspots with a new cycle. Right now, it's kind of sad to see that the sunspots seem to really, you know, it's going to be really a small cycle coming soon. So it's going to be interesting to see where we're going through with the sunspot cycle, because wow, it's just crazy. Just crazy. So let's hope that it's going to be better, but right now we're expecting a small sort of cycle for what's coming in cycle 25. So that was the little talk on the solar activity, the effects, the geomagnetic storming that can come from there, and hope you guys enjoyed the little talk on solar activity. You know, it's part astronomy and part shortwave radio. So hope you guys enjoyed the show for that. So what else do we have? Erica Charles got CH on 3 and 7 megahertz. I'm going to try 7850. Nothing. But I do get $3330. 3330 is really good. Usually is here. So, you know, I'm not that far from Ottawa. Even in the daytime, I get CHU here. Max S. Strong's got Martian tapes claiming that I'm the Messiah. Oh God. If I'm the Messiah, you guys are in trouble. Pietro Fredius says, bad the XH data D808. Good on single sideband, very easy to tune. Lower and upper sideband, good signal on shortwave AM mode. I like it also on longwave and shortwave. Good FM with RDS. I'll have to test it on the airband. Wow, looks like an interesting radio. I'm going to need to get one of those and review it for sure. Richard is receiving CHU on 7850. Wow, okay. B says, Joe, why do you never mention one of the best rock groups to come out of Canada, especially live? And they were called Saga. You know, well, we don't talk about music a lot. I'm not a big fan of Saga. I'm a big fan of... I do like a lot of Canadian rock. There's a lot of great Canadian artists. You know, one of the artists that's been forgotten and that's really Canadian and that most people around the world don't know is Gowan. I love that guy. But for those that were international, I mean, Bryan Adams, there's, oh man, what's that group name? Trying to remember the name of, I forgot the name of that group. Darn. Canadian group. Progressive rock. Anybody can help me out with that? Man, I got the singer, lead singer name, the face in my head. I forgot the name. Oh, that's possible. Casper Peterson, what is on 6040? The New Brother Stare? 6. I did stumble upon something like that the other day.
Humiliations, our sins and our sorrows, and so this wonderful Word of God. That's why we need to spend time in it. And when we spend time in it, don't just go with your mind all made up and you're all got it all set and you're not going to listen to God. Say, I could be wrong. Maybe you've been too, you know, I used to teach that the world was square and flat and you could drop off of the earth. Those parents that taught that, they believed that with all their heart, but they were wrong. And so you...
So, this does sound like a brother staring coming. Maybe he's going to be the next one to buy hundreds of thousands of dollars of airtime. So this is WHRI, World Harvest Radio, and it's a Saturday-Sunday broadcast only. So WHRI from South Bend, Indiana, on that frequency right now. So they are Saturday and Sunday only. So with the preacher, I heard it last week or 2 weeks ago. And I was like, what is that on 6040? I had kind of the same reaction. So vaults, considering people know so little about the sun, you know, the predictions are, it's true that any random predict, like, you know, last cycle, when the solar cycle 24, there were three predictions, and one was right. So yeah, okay. What's a little different is that this time the predictions are a little more based on not just the actual study of the innards of the magnetic field of the sun, which was kind of something we didn't know really, but it's also based on a broader cycle, looking at the past 300 years and seeing that there's a bigger cycle within the solar cycles, because there's several cycles. There's the 11-year cycle, there's another cycle of, I don't remember what it is exactly, like the 40-year cycle or something, and so within that they have refined the prediction. But honestly, you know, I'd be very happy anyways if they're wrong and we get a really huge solar cycle for sure. Cosmic Lettuce says, I've seen aurora in southern Arizona. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When it's very, very strong, I can tell you, pretty crazy. What do you miss? Hey, Casey Red Dragon, you missed the old lecture on solar activity. So you know. What else do we have? Yeah, exactly, David. We'll treasure those moments of good propagation on the IHF bands. Well, there's a lot of, you know, one of the things that at least is nice of 10 meters and stuff like that is at least sporadic E-skip is there. KC Red Dragons, channel marker in 4213. Evgeny Astano says, really good signal from Ottawa here too on 3330. Starting this line. So when will we be getting a beautiful review of the Grundig? This week, Southern Illinois stand. This week it's coming. I've been taking a lot of notes because it's a very complex radio. So in order to do a review I needed to take a lot of notes that I'll be feeding upon while I'm doing the review to make sure I don't forget anything. So, Southern Illinois Sand says, how can you get better than Bryan Adams' Summer '69? Oh, God. Yes, absolutely. You're right, Mickey Delage. I saw that. I didn't know. I saw that on while I was looking at Wikipedia on Lawrence Gowan, and that's why Styx, because I had seen that on YouTube, and that is why Styx actually plays the song from Gowan, which is A Criminal Mind, which I love. That song is amazing. A Criminal Mind is just amazing. No signal on vertical intent on 3330. Huh. David says, hearing CHU 7850 right now on his ICOM. Not very clear because of my S8 noise floor, but I can definitely hear it. Wow. Rush. Thank you, Red Wayne. That's what I wanted to say. Rush. Rush. Voss, his brother elevator. Yeah. Brother elevator. Crazy guy on 9350 apparently. Take care, PLF Radio. Nice to have you on here, Robert. Someone in Spanish on 9640, according to Richard Cook. PA1WX, nice to have you on board. Svalbard has a good documentary research about the sun. I was right for the prediction of cycle 24. 25 will be bigger than 24 because the polar field's already built. It's going to be interesting to see. And see who is right in those predictions. One thing for sure. PA1WX. One thing for sure. So, crazy. Do you think other stations will follow what World Harvest Radio is doing, only broadcasting on the weekends? I think it's, it depends probably on who wants to pay for the broadcast, one thing for sure. So it's there are some things like that. World Harvest Radio. I know that there are others that do it. I believe like WRMI has some stuff that are unique to the weekends. I guess one of the reasons they do it, they kind of guess that more people are listening to shortwave on the weekends. I would guess. Hey, Ernie Turner. Yeah, still here. 3 hours now. Almost 3 hours for the show, for sure. What's the digital mode on 3592? I would guess there's some radio teletype in there. Anything here? Oh, I'm hearing some like ERQ or something. I don't know exactly. Hey, Patrick Manny, nice to have you on board. Enjoyed your review of the new Insider Preview. Thank you. I hope it was not too bad. David says 9640 CRI in Spanish. XNEDXer, hey Keegan, good afternoon. Nice to have you on board from Northwest Arkansas in the low 30s. Here it's minus 14 Celsius. So we're getting close to, we're about at, something like 7 or 8 Fahrenheit. And down to minus 23 tonight. So we'll be at about minus, I don't know, minus 15 Fahrenheit, something like that. Any red wine left? Absolutely. I still have more than half of the bottle is still there. So, you want some? I'm going to send you some, Ernie. That'd be fun to have teleportation. Oh, you want to taste the wine? Here. And you guys say, hey, I've got the greatest whatever, I've got the greatest scotch. I'm going to send you one. Oh, okay. I'm going to taste that out. And then we will all end up real drunk at the end. Nicholas Heyer. WMI does shortwave radiogram on weekends. I know. Yep. usually in PSK32 with images. It is very fun to decode. I love the shortwave radiogram, which is what was the VOA radiogram when they were broadcast from the VOA transmitters. But the shortwave radiograms are amazing. And yes, they probably moved on 7780 for sure. 3600, I heard Morse code. Yes, I did hear it. It's Morse code. So, and everything from 11580 is down to 7780. Let me try 7780. I've not been receiving it well here. 7780 has not been very, very good here. It's absolutely absent tonight. I don't hear a thing on 7780. Really, really amazing. So, it's really, really cool. So apart from that, yeah, WRMI did move all the things from 11580 to 7780 that I don't hear. That's crazy because I don't hear at all. Actually, it was better on 11580 for me after all. So Richard says, well, the radio, Glenn Hauser's excellent show, is on 7780 right now. So if you guys want to have the World of Radio show by Glenn Hauser, which is pretty cool, and it's kind of cool to have all of you here. What else do we have? What else do we have? Let me check that out. PM1WX says here in Netherlands, 3 Celsius at this moment, and I am enjoying live show. So thank you, Brian. Minus 14 Celsius here, and it's going to be minus 23 tonight, which is kind of normal for here. Lee Locke, Happy New Year. Nice to have you on board. Chris Freitas says, well, Gilles, I have monetization set up on my channel. I just have to 5,000 or so more views before a review to make sure it meets YouTube guidelines. Oh yeah, that's true. I completely forgot, but they have the new guidelines. The new guidelines of 10,000 views before monetization can go on. And which was not there when I started. But you know, when I started, you still had to get monetization. When I started, and okay, I got monetization for the first time in 2010. And back then, you had first to be accepted and reviewed to be okay for monetization. And then, and it was really complex. It was they would send you a little card with a secret code, and they would do a lot of things. And then, when you would open a YouTube channel, you had monetization enabled after only a certain time that you'd be posting. It was not a, no views or anything were required. It was just, we need to be sure about what you're doing before we can say, hey, you're monetized. And back then I only had one channel, which was the Shortwave channel. And I remember one day receiving an email saying, it took like 6 months. And the email said, hey, you're approved for monetization. If you want to monetize your videos, congratulations. It was a very, very complex process back then. But monetization back then was so much more generous than today. Today is crazy. But go ahead and do it. Like I say, if you're about to do videos, do monetization, because you'd be crazy not to do it. What else do we have here? Okay. Sorry here. Southern Illinois Sand. Yeah, eggnog is something that I hear here and there, but I've never. You guys are going to be surprised. I've never drank eggnog. I mean, the real one with alcohol in it, the one that, you know, is the one that people kind of drink. I've never had that, ever, ever, ever. And you know what? I kind of. I was wondering because at in the holidays I did see a recipe for eggnog with you know, alcohol and everything. Because, you know, in the stores we have eggnog with no alcohol or nothing. It is something because it is where I see it in the stores. But the real one with alcohol and everything, I saw a recipe, and it made me wonder if it was more of a Canadian thing and less of a Quebec thing. Because I've never seen anyone in my family drink eggnog. So I don't know. It's kind of... I believe there's a... I think I saw something about a contest for digital modes. There's a contest of radio teletype or something this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. I kind of saw something. Two Ends in the Radio says 7490 shortwave Saturday night. Cool. KC Red Dragon says, what digital mode you say on 3592? It sounded like ARQ or something. It's I'm not really sure, honestly. Shady Pyro 90, nice to have you here. Tuning in to WWVH on 2500. Wow, pretty cool on the Hawaii SDR. Well, it's right next to it. Did somebody say eggnog? So, you know, I need to. I would need to have somebody that does the good one, the one that tastes good. That should be the one you drink. But there was a nice recipe, and I almost felt like trying it out. And one of the online newspapers, they always put up a Christmas special site. And when I was going through the news one day, I was looking at. I saw eggnog recipe, you know, and I clicked on it, and it had rum in it and everything, and I was like, that should be something I would try out. And, you know, maybe next Christmas time, do a have some eggnog, be real Christmassy. Kind of interesting. Lady Addis says the 40-meter band is active even for my internal antenna. Trying to get another ham design, but no luck. It happens. Have you guys noticed? I didn't go crazy. There's a couple of hams that seem to be on like 3600 upper sideband instead of lower. I've been hearing them a few times in the past month. Vienna Arsenault says, I'm an operator with a big signal on 3610. Let's check it out. 3610. Lower sideband. Anything there? Anything there? 3610. It's,
Yes, hi, Jerry, same to you. You know, I saw on our block here, there was a couple of people having parties. We were wondering what those parties were about, and I said, well, maybe it's an MLK party. Maybe it's a new tradition. I don't know.
So 3610, another very strong signal from amateur operator, absolutely. Yeah, the Signal Wiki is a very, very good one, KC the Red Dragon. Thanks for sharing, because it is a very, very good one for identifying any digital signals. Yeah, there was the activated missile warning by accident happened today in Hawaii, absolutely. How much lag is there between the SDR and the ICOM? I'd say about half a second. just enough to be annoying, but about half a second. Approximately half a second, which is not that bad considering that you got to process and everything. Half a second. Yep, Jenny, not bad. Bon signal. So, Radio Toronto is in English on 5850. You guys hearing that? 5850. I think Radio Toronto is there. .50. And I think that's Radio Toronto. On 5850, it's at this time. We should have Turkey. Is Turkey there? Yep. The Voice of Turkey is there in English on 5960 right now.
Note that the Ikhwan is the Arabic name of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Death sentences handed to 15 people who were tried on charges of terrorist acts in the Sinai Peninsula were executed on Tuesday, 26th of December 2017, while 4 convicts who were held responsible for the bomb attack in Kaf el-Sheikh city were executed on 2nd of January, only 1 week later. The convicts who were killed in unmaker attacks were reportedly members of radical terror organizations such as Daesh and Ansar Bait al-Masih. There was no official statement regarding the affiliation of the first group of people to the Ikhwan.
So Voice of Turkey, not too bad on 5960. Yeah, it kind of resembles Packet, but it's not quite Packet. I'm not really sure. Basically. David says, I can hear the ham on 3610 LSB weak, but definitely audible. Wow, that's nice. You got a North American ham on 80 meters. That's kind of cool. Richard Cook says, weird propagation. North Korea tonight on 7570 again. Wow. Sartain, Illinois saying, yeah, got to be careful. Japan is the air is offline. So what internet do you use? I use 63.3 feet wire, handy Coley. I've got a around 75 feet sloper antenna in my backyard, which is about orientation east-west. And it goes to the east part down the fence in my backyard up to the top of the roof of the building at the west part. Yeah, and this sounds like ARQ, some kind of ARQ mode, KC Red Dragon. That's from experience listening. Did sound like that. So, anybody else wants to add a little something before we start winding down the net or the live show for today? I'm just gonna mention again, if you want to help me out, paypal.com/shortwave, or send it the Yahoo email that I'm posting right now, and of course patreon.com/radio and computers, another way where you can send me a little something to help me out. So yeah, the one on 3592 was kind of an ARQ, but you got to be careful because on 3592 you can also encounter radio teletype. 3592, if it's bursts of data, it's kind of ARQ, but it could be some radio teletype also, which is like constant. So I want to thank everybody for participating. We've been on for 3 hours and 15 minutes. It just passed like this, man. I mean, these shows have been going so fast. Yesterday was a 3 hour and something, another 3 hour today. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. And I'll be tuning to bands tonight. My next radio show, Ernie, is Friday next Friday, the 19th. So Saturday morning for you, 2000 hours UTC. So check that out. It's going to be the next live show for radio. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll be listening to the radio tonight. I'll tune around the bands. Probably fire up this Grandig. And review coming up this week. You guys are going to be amazed at this thing. Just crazy. Totally crazy. I can tell you that. So I want to thank you all for being great fans. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. I want to. One of the live shows I want to do is like just be with like, you know, this and maybe the Shortwave 60 and some older radios, and have fun with that. I think that could be really, really cool. So take care, everybody. Always amazing to have all of you here. It's pretty cool to have all of you on board. Thanks for being great fans. And some Clover on 3586, really? Wow, 3586. Oops, 3586. I need to check that out. I like it when I hear like different modes that you don't really hear much on the bands. Well, stay warm. The best that we got, the best we can. Take care, everybody. We'll be back next Friday. Thanks for the donations, everybody. And thank you from... oh, he's not outside, Patrick. The cat is... he's just out of the room, but not outside, because there's some people in the other room. So, not to have a lot of noise, too much noise here. So thanks, everybody, for being great fans, being here. Without you guys, there would be no shows. See you Friday. And for those that are on the tech stuff, next show is Tuesday 2000 hours UT, 3 p.m. Eastern. We have the tech show with the tech news and answering questions. And Tuesday at 2200 UTC, 5 p.m. Eastern, Windows Insider Hour, where we're going to talk about the new build, the latest build of Windows 10 and the new features that it has. Take care, everybody. Stay safe, and see you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.